Well, good afternoon, everyone. So glad that you've come and continued with us. I anticipate there will be a few more who join us from the fellowship hall. But I know Bryan has lots of great information for us this afternoon, so I don't want to delay our opportunity to get to that. So again, thank you, Bryan, for being here with us. Let's just have a word of prayer as we get started this afternoon. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the complexity that you've made in our lives. And Lord, we pray that as we go through this afternoon, that we will learn how to untangle some of the craziness that we have in our own lives and the lives of our families. Lord, bless us in this time. Be with Bryan. Give him the energy and clarity to share these things with us. And may it be a blessing. For your name's honor and glory, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks so much, Bryan.
All right. Everyone should have a handout. Hopefully that will help them follow along. This is part 1 of 2. We're doing part 1 right now, and then at 3:15 we'll do part 2. We're going to be looking at something called relational triangles. Relational triangles, and these are the triangles we experience in our relationships. So thank you for the prayer and the introduction, Chris. So we're going to start by telling a story together, an improv story. We're going to just make this up on the spot. So once upon a time, there was a nurse named Barbara? Awesome, Barbara, that's right. Barbara the nurse. And Barbara the nurse worked at which hospital? Say it again, Saint what? St. Alphonsus. Okay, am I saying that right? Okay, Barbara the nurse worked at St. Alphonsus. And every day when she got home from work, she would have different tasks to do. But on Tuesday, she always went to the grocery store to pick up some food because it was vegetarian taco night. So she had to get some of her food. So she went to the grocery store, and she got her stuff in the cart, and she went to go check out, and there was 3 different places you could go check out in, and she chose a specific line that was short, but it took a long time to get to there, right? The shorter lines aren't always the fastest ones. And she got up there, and there was a person in front of her that was trying to check out, but they were taking a long time. What was the reason they were taking longer than normal? They were talking. Is that here talking? They were just chatting it up. They were just talking with the cashier. They were talking about the news, talking about the kids. In fact, they were old friends. So Barbara, the nurse, has her stuff on the conveyor belt and is just waiting for this person to pay. She finally gets to the end of her ropes, and Barbara says something under her breath. What does she say? Hurry it up. Ooh, hurry it up. And did she say it, like, what kind of attitude did she say it with? What did he say? Disgust. Hurry it up. Well, the person who was just chatting it up gave her like a side glare, grabbed her bags, and walked out. What Barbara didn't know is it was the cashier's first day. It said cashier in training. And so the hurry it up really rattled that cashier. So she's trying to scan the stuff. She couldn't do it right. She forgot what asparagus looked like. She had to like call to the back. Where'd you get, like, how much is a pineapple? She couldn't look it up. She was having a lot of difficulty. That made Barbara even more upset. Take her way longer than she needs to. By this time, she looks at her watch. I was supposed to be home 10 minutes ago. So she runs out to her car, throws it in reverse, hears a little, looks back, and she hits another vehicle. What kind of vehicle is it? A what? BMW. Ooh, a nice BMW. Okay. And what color is the BMW? Red. A red BMW. Thank you. So she's like, well, I should probably be a good citizen. She gets out. She looks. She doesn't see any scratch. She kind of rubs it off. Okay, I think we're okay. So she drives off. About 20 minutes later, someone comes out of the store with their groceries and goes to their nice new BMW, the red one, the apple red one they just got 2 weeks ago. And she sees this little tiny scratch on the side. And this new person is really upset. She is just incensed. I just got this car for my birthday. I can't believe someone would do this. So she throws it in reverse, gets on the highway, doesn't use her blinkers, just zooming it back and forth across traffic. And she cuts off someone else. And this person has a truck. And the person says, how dare that person cut me off? Like, you learn how to drive correctly. So this person who's in the truck gets home, and he stomps out of the truck, and he goes inside, and there's a dog that runs to greet him. And what does he do to the dog? Ooh, we know this story. Kicks the dog. This dog is not normally kicked, not used to being kicked. The dog's feelings hurt. So the dog goes outside and starts to whimper, and some of the other kids in the family try and come out and console the dog, but the dog is inconsolable. So the dog digs a hole under the fence, runs under the fence, and where does the dog run to? What? Runs into the street. And he's running in the street, and he sees some kids playing baseball or dodgeball in the street. And so when the kids see this dog running up to them, oh, doggy, doggy, and what happens? Oh, we know the story. The dog bites them. Bites one of the kids. Let's say it's a 4-year-old girl. Bites a 4-year-old girl. The girl starts crying. The parents run out to console her. Like, it breaks the skin. It's not serious, but it breaks the skin. And these are first-time parents. They're worried about what to do. In the morning, they look at the wound from the dog biting this girl. They think, you know what? We should probably just take her in just to get her checked out. So they take the girl in to which hospital? And who is there to help her? Barbara. Okay, good. Whose fault is it? Whose fault is it that this happened? Yeah, why is it Barbara's? Because she was angry. Okay. So it's Barbara's fault that caused the other person with the red car to get upset, which caused her to cut off this other person with the truck, which caused this person to kick the dog, and then the dog to bite the child. So all of that was Barbara's fault? No. Yes, no. Oh, I like this. Why yes and no? Yes, okay. I can't control other people. I can barely control myself on a good day. Right? Okay. So whose fault is it? Everybody's fault. Here in the West, we are very, very good at finding a finger to point into where it's supposed to point. We can find out who is at fault. Now we have someone to blame. But when it comes to families and systems and society, we all play a role. At any point in time, any one of those individuals could have not done what they did, correct? What happens is anxiety is passed from person to person to person like a wildfire. So today we're talking about how distress is passed from person to person. And it might take slightly different forms and it might look differently, but in this scenario it passed several different entities and then it came back around and Barbara had to deal with it. And she didn't even know this is what happened. This is what happens in our life. This is what happens in our society. During this presentation, I have several different pictures, memes. These are memes that are current memes on the internet. And this gives me a chance to get a drink of water and for you to look at the memes. So you get a break from Bryan's voice. And one of the big things is, when we learn about triangles, we will soon realize that not everybody's problem is mine to fix. That's one of the first things we'll be learning. So, it ran my family until it ran into me. This is an opportunity for you to change the way you relate to other people and change the way you're willing to, or not willing to, be a broker of anxiety in your families and in society. Because if you just continue doing what you're doing, you're going to end up just like Barbara, passing on distress to other people, and it's going to go down the line. But at any point in time, someone could have changed their reactions, changed their behavior, and would have been a different outcome. So, the first part, we'll be talking about understanding the formation, attributes, and dynamics of relational triangles. We're also going to talk about how to recognize our own role and position in a triangle. That's the goal from now until about 3 o'clock, and then 3:15 we'll continue this, talk about some of this other stuff. Okay, so there's a 2-part presentation. We're talking about part 1 right now. And right now, Bryan is not acting as a marriage and family therapist. I'm acting more as a certified family life educator, where I'm educating you about these patterns. And I can't get too specific because everyone's own relationship topography is a little bit different, right? So I'm teaching you about the principles and how to apply them, but in each situation might be a little bit different. For example, if there's safety involved, a question of safety, you might have to adjust how you approach it. But I'm teaching in general how these concepts play out and what we can do differently. All right, so sometimes we feel like we can be a hero coming to the rescue, and we end up spending our emotional energy, emotional capacity, dealing with other people's problems, and then we don't have enough of our own emotional capacity to deal with our own stuff on our own plate. And this is often a pattern in Christian churches because we want to be good little church mice and help out other people with their cheese. We have some of our own cheese we have to clean up. So I'm going to hopefully be able to redirect you some of your attention to your own stuff and away from other people's stuff. Now, when I talked with Chris to organize this, we had a big conversation, and he and I were in agreement about what the favorite topic regarding families was for the Nampa SDA Church. So I want to make sure we're on the same page. On the count of 3, we're all going to loudly announce what our favorite family topic is, okay? We're all going to do it at the same time, and I'm pretty sure we'll all be in agreement, okay? So I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. What's your favorite family topic? Think about it. I'm pretty sure we'll be on the same page. So when I say 3, I'll do 1, 2, 3, and then we all say our favorite family topic. Ready? 1, 2, 3. In-laws. Right. We're going to be talking, this is not working in the back. I'm not sure what's happening back there. Right. We're talking about in-laws. So we know the story of when Jacob deceived his father Isaac, right? So he tricks his father out of the blessing. And down here, there's this little clue. Rebekah says to her son Jacob, "Behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying," because Rebekah heard all this stuff when Isaac had told Esau, "Go and bring some game back to me and cook it in the way," thank you, "that I liked it to be cooked." But the story doesn't start here. In fact, this label right here at the top, Jacob's deception, is something that whoever created your Bible, someone else put that in to title the chapter, right? So we know that this title chapter is artificial, right? Kind of summarize what's going to happen. In fact, these chapter and verse numbers are also artificial. They were added in later to help people go to the same place. The original document did not have this chapter break. And so it sounds like the story begins with Isaac telling Esau to go get some game to bring it back so I can bless you. That's how it sounds like the story begins. But if you go to the previous verse, the stories actually start somewhere else. When Esau was 40 years old and he married Judith, the daughter of Beri the Hittite, and Basemath, sweet name, Basemath, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, they brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. This is how the story starts. Esau marries 2 women that Rebekah and Isaac do not approve of, and they, the daughters-in-law, brought grief to Isaac and Rebekah. That's how the story starts. So this is the background of the story. Rebekah hears what's happening, and we know that Rebekah is behind the scenes, right, pulling the strings, being the puppet master. That's why she goes to Jacob and, "Behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying," et cetera, et cetera. So she has this sweet plan. A sweet plan so to get her preferred son, Jacob, to go and trick his father, right? This is elder abuse. It's spiritual and financial elder abuse, fiduciary abuse, trying to get the goods from the father. And so Jacob goes, he tricks his father, and then Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing which was his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." In one verse, it's actually half of the verse, Esau says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 words in English. I'm going to kill my brother. Let's notice 42, 43, 44, and 45. Rebekah takes this story and she blows this story up. When she retells it to Jacob, she doesn't just say, "Oh, your brother said he would kill you." It says she makes a big deal of it. "Behold, your brother Esau is consoling himself, concerning you by planning to kill you." And then she adds all this extra stuff on. "Now then, my son, obey my voice and arise. Flee to Haran, to my brother Laban. Stay with him a few days until your brother's fury subsides, until your brother's anger against you subsides, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send word and get you from there. Why should I lose you both in one day?" So Rebekah makes a big deal out of Esau's statement. Next verse. And Rebekah then goes to Isaac. She's trying to pull the strings. "I am tired of living because of the daughters of Heth." These are her daughters-in-law that Esau married. "If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these from the daughters of the land, what good will my life be to me?" So what's the impetus for this? Rebekah doesn't like her daughters-in-law. That's the whole reason for this. She doesn't like this idea of having to live with her daughters-in-law. And right now, Esau, even though Esau has been tricked out of the birthright, because remember Jacob traded a bowl of soup for the birthright? And then if we can get my favorite son Jacob to have the birthright and the blessing, that means I can live with my son Jacob and not have to be with Esau and his daughters-in-law. That's her solution. Instead of working out with her daughters-in-law, let's trick my husband out of the blessing so that my son can have the blessing and the birthright, then I can be with him and not have to deal with his daughters-in-law. That was her whole goal. But what happened? Did it work out well? I mean, her son got the blessing, right? But what else happened? Separated, right? Son had to run away. In fact, we go to the next verse, next chapter. So Isaac then calls Jacob and blessed him and commanded him, saying to him, "You shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan, like your brother did. Arise and go to Padamaran to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and from there to take for yourself a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." So the whole idea is, I would rather have a daughter-in-law that knows how to do things the right way. So I'm going to send my favorite son back home where they know how to run the tent hold and bring someone back so I can get along with them. That's what Rebecca's trying to do. So she could have prayed about it, could have applied the Matthew 18 principles with the daughters-in-law, could have held a family meeting with Esau and the daughters-in-law, could have agreed to disagree with the daughters-in-law. Instead, she convinced her favorite son to dress up in goat skin and swindle the blessing from her legally blind husband, and then scare Jacob out of town to obtain an approved wife from her family back in Padamaran. That's a big step to solve the problem, right? But we know this sort of roundaboutness happens in our families as well. Usually because people don't want to deal with the tension directly. It's uncomfortable to deal with the tension. I'd rather go a roundabout way. And that's what triangles are all about. They're a roundabout way to try and get what I want without actually addressing the situation head on. The concept of detriangulation is probably the most important concept when it comes to practicing family therapy. Now, you don't have to be a family therapist to learn about this or to utilize this, but this is super important for me because when I have couples come in front of me or a family, I'm not able to take sides. Well, I could take a side, but as soon as I take a side, it's going to feel like me and one person against the other person. So I have to remain neutral. But it's so easy for us to take sides. It's so easy. This happens subconsciously. So when we think about triangles, we're going to be thinking about what sides are we taking, and if we're taking a side, what does that do to the other relationships in the triangle? There we go. If you're a math whiz and you like math, you can figure out the number of triangles in the room, possible triangles in the room, based off the number of people in the room. So if you have 3 people in a room, there's 1 triangle, which makes sense, right? If there are 4 people in a room, there's a total of 4 triangles. If there's 10 people in a room, there are 120 possible triangles. If there are 300 people at this church, there's a possible 4.5 million possible triangles. So there's lots of triangulation. I am in hundreds of thousands of triangles right now. In fact, I'm in a triangle with all of you. Even though I don't necessarily know your names or who you are, just by me being in this room, there are triangles present. Doesn't mean they're always active, but they are present, right? Some triangles are linked, they're not as active, whereas other triangles are definitely prominent, front and center. So I'm going to give you 4 different scenarios of different families and how triangles play out here. So 4 quick scenarios. On this hand side, an unstable dyad, so a dyad that experiences some distress, that's what the squiggly lines mean, some distress between these 2 individuals, can be stabilized by the addition of a third party. What does this mean? We have 2 people, and they're not getting along. By adding a third person or third party, this can change their relationship. Likewise, these 2 people, a stable dyad, can be destabilized by the addition of a third party. So let's say these 2 people are not getting along. Maybe they're in the same Sabbath school and they have disagreements about theology. But as soon as some person comes in carrying a cup of coffee, that changes this relationship because now we have a common enemy. We're no longer fighting over theology because we both agree that caffeine is bad, right? Just like 2 people might get along, and all of a sudden, when you add someone else to the family, now they can't spend as much time with each other, and they're more focused on the child, so there's more distress in their relationship. So the addition of a third party can change the relationship between these 2, where they have some distress, and now they're getting along, or maybe they were getting along, and now they're having distress. So the addition of a third party can change the relationship between the two people that were there first. Right. Likewise, if there are two people that don't get along, the unstable dyad can be stabilized by the removal of a third party. Or these people who are getting along, the removal of this person might change this relationship. So let's say these two people are not getting along because they're watching football. And one person likes the Chicago Bears, and the other person likes the Detroit Lions. And they're in contention with one another because they're watching the Chicago Bears play the Detroit Lions. So they're not getting along. But as soon as the TV disappears and the game is done, these two start getting along because they're friends. They just disagree when it comes to football. Likewise, this situation over here, maybe there's a Sabbath school leader who has a nice calming presence, and these two get along, but suddenly the Sabbath school leader moves to Iowa because that's where their family is. When this Sabbath school leader leaves, all of a sudden these two individuals, which used to get along, all of a sudden they don't have that stabilizing presence, and there's contention between them. So what this means is the removal of a third party or the addition of a third party can change what happens between two individuals. How are you feeling about this idea? So regardless of whether the dyad experiences conflict or no conflict, the addition or removal of a third party can change the relationship, what happens between those two people. All right, ask me a question before I move on. Yes?
Can you explain what a dyad is?
Good. A dyad is two people. So two people, regardless of whether two people experience tension or conflict or no conflict, smooth sailing, the addition or removal of a third party can change what happens between those two people. And I say third party because it doesn't always have to be a person. It could be a hobby or an addiction or a job or a certain political viewpoint. The addition of that thing can change the relationship between those two people. Good. Ask me another question before I move on. Should I interpret the silence as you totally understand this? Or interpret the silence as we're thinking about it? Okay, yeah. I'm asking for a paradigm shift. Advance the slide for me, please. I want you to think about relationships in terms of threes, not twos. Why? Because it's not just two people in a relationship. There's always a third person, always a third party. And we're not thinking about that, but the addition or removal of that person will change the way we relate to one another. If Pastor Chris comes to visit your house, I'm guessing that might change the way that you present yourself just because he's present, right? If the president walked in here, or the president of the conference, or a celebrity, that would change what we do. If an enemy comes in, that would change how we interact with other people in the room. So it's not just about twos, relationships are about threes. Advance the slide for me, please. So triangles are the basic building blocks of emotional systems. A relational triangle is a three-person emotional configuration. The mouthful. They're just three people that are in a relationship with one another. And usually it's people. Oftentimes there is an addiction or a hobby or work involved. But I really want you to think about relationships in terms of threes. Advance the slide for me, please. Oh, go back one. There we go. About how three people can be interacting and one person can be in two different triangles simultaneously. There can be this idea of interlocking triangles. So you have three people over here, so myself and two other people, but I'm also simultaneously in a triangle with these people over here. So I am in multiple triangles at the same exact time. So a two-person relationship might be stable for a while, but once there's enough distress between two people, it's really easy to pull in a third person. Hey, come and join our triangle, be an active participant. Because if I'm fighting with my friend, I might go to another friend and say, can you believe what Robert did? He stood me up. We were supposed to have pie every Wednesday night, and he didn't show up, and I waited for hours, and he forgot to tell me. How you don't treat your friends that way, so I'm trying to tell this other person about my distress in this relationship, and all of a sudden we're this active triangle. So there's distress in the dyad, two people that are experiencing some distress, and then we pass that anxiety on to other people. I rope in another person to participate to help me carry some of this distress. This is really like a multi-level marketing scheme. We try and find other people to handle our hot potatoes that we're having difficulty handling. We need some other hands. Many hands make light work. For this, there we go. So triangles are basically this way that we pass on unresolved tension to other people. What do we think about this idea so far? It happens? Okay, it happens, yeah, okay. Who's still a little bit like, I don't buy it, Bryan? Who's still hesitant to accept this? And we're allowed to disagree? Okay, by no one voicing their opinion, I'm gonna assume that everybody totally agrees with me. If you can advance the slide for me. Thank you. So the extent to which you get involved in other people's business, you are more likely to experience the distress of that relationship. The more you try and get in the middle of their business, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. It's not your relationship, it's their relationship, but the more you get involved, the more you get messy. So if you have gloves and you get into their muddiness, you're probably gonna get muddy gloves, right? Not glovey mud. So the more we get involved, the more we experience the distress of that relationship. So if this person tries to jump in and help the situation, if you could advance, there we go, then they will start to experience the distress of that relationship, even though it's not their relationship, right? It's the distress between two other people. So if you've ever done anything wrong to me, just know that my mom also knows. My mom doesn't like you. So when we tell stories about what happened to someone else who's not even related, that person forms an opinion about this other party, and we're in this triangle together. By me sharing my distress with someone else, then they will carry some of that distress, take some of those hot potatoes away from me. Because that's what we experience on a regular basis, these hot potatoes. And if you remember when you were a kid and you went to a pool and the hot pavement around the pool, if you didn't want to burn your feet, how would you walk? What do you say? Fast, quickly, right. We don't want our feet to touch the hot ground for too long. Likewise, if I take a hot potato out of the oven, I'm gonna do this, right? I don't wanna hold it because I don't wanna get burned. So I'm gonna hold the hot potato as little amount of time as possible. And sometimes we're juggling hot potatoes. We're trying to find other people to hand these hot potatoes off to because I don't wanna get burned. This is what happens to the anxiety in our families. We learn to pass anxiety from person to person. And most people start to behave in response to the anxieties rather than to each other. So we think we're responding to our partner, our friend, but most likely we're responding to the anxiety we experience in that relationship. And then we blame the other person for that anxiety. So I want you to think of anxiety as this neutral resource, commodity, that's been passed down from generation to generation like a precious family heirloom, and we just get used to passing hot potatoes around the room. And some families have more hot potatoes than other families, right? So triangulation is both an emotional process, emotional experience, being in a triangle. It's also an anxiety binding experience where families start to get used to how much anxiety is in the family and the rules around how we pass hot potatoes around. We know some families operate at a higher level of anxiety, right? And other families have a little bit less. And it's different for every family. And the family has to negotiate how they're going to do this. And some families just have more hot potatoes than others. I'm gonna need some help back there. Some triangles feel stable, while other triangles do not feel stable. And regardless of the stability or instability of the triangle, anxiety is passed from person to person to person, and there can be a domino effect. So if one person starts yelling, saying, fire, 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 we're going to look around to see where the fire is, maybe stand up, because just from hearing that, we might get a little bit anxious about the potential danger. So anxiety can pass from person to person. And triangles are also forever. Just because one person passes away doesn't mean the anxiety they experience with other people in the family suddenly disappear. That anxiety is just redistributed amongst the rest of the family members. Sometimes we think the solution to the problem is if that person would just go away. Once this person dies in the family, we don't have to deal with them anymore. No problems. That's not the case. All that unresolved tension just gets redistributed amongst the rest of the surviving family members. Which is why when one person leaves, for whatever reason, sometimes we'll see shifts in the relationship for everyone else who's remaining. Because anxiety doesn't just disappear. Triangles are forever. In fact, we can continue to have a relationship with someone who is no longer present because we're thinking about them, because we're thinking about how they impacted the rest of our lives. So a lot of the stress we deal with is not our stress to deal with. I'll say it again. A lot of the stress we deal with is not really our stress to deal with. It's other people's distress. And they've pawned it off onto us. And we become brokers. We become used to passing along the hot potatoes. But a lot of stuff we deal with is not ours to deal with. This says, most people spend more energy working on other people's problems than we do working on our own problems. And sometimes it's more fun to work on other people's problems, right? I moved in March. And I have a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. That time it was a 4-year-old and a not quite 1-year-old. And packing and moving is a lot different with 2 little ones compared to when I didn't have anyone to deal with. That's what it feels like when you're packing. Because you have to spend all this energy packing up the boxes, trying to decide, do I want to keep this or take it to Goodwill? What box should I put this in? Because they're all precious, right? And I come across old books or keepsakes. Oh, I remember the time when I started looking at old pictures. It takes me a lot of time to pack my own stuff. I love packing other people's stuff. I go to their house, throw everything in a box, tape it up, here we go out the door. But when it's my own stuff, it takes a lot more time, a lot more energy to pack my own stuff. Similarly, it's sometimes more fun to deal with other people's stuff than our own stuff, because our own stuff, we have to face some stuff we'd rather not face. So sometimes we get sucked into this idea that we're helping other people as if helping them is a good thing, and that might be a good thing, but if you're doing it at the expense of your own capacity to deal with your own stuff, then you will end up paying the price for that down the road. This happens in families, and it happens in churches. And the less able the family or the church is able to manage their stress individually, the less able they are to identify their own values, feelings, reactivity, distinct and different from others. And what happens is, the more likely we will depend on triangulation in order to stabilize the system. What does all this mean? It means that once I get used to handling a certain amount of hot potatoes, we create this social agreement about how many hot potatoes we're allowed to pass and who's willing to carry more of the hot potatoes. Some people are willing to carry more distress than others. And we quickly find that out who that is in the church, in the family. And so we depend on this hot potato passing in order to survive daily life. So you can juggle 1, 2, 3. Here's 3 batons this person's juggling. If you have 2 people, it's actually 3 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14. So there are 3 people juggling, and they're juggling 14 batons, right? This person's only juggling 3. Imagine if you get more people juggling batons. This person's juggling chainsaws. These 2 people are on top of each other, but this is more precarious and this is more dangerous, right? Sometimes we're passing around some things that are dangerous, that are difficult, and there are real consequences when the anxiety falls in someone's lap. There can be a big splash, someone can get burned, and this is what happens. This is a social construct that we create in our churches and in our families. We just agree, all right, we got to pass these around, we got to find someone else to take care of this. And this takes quite a bit of energy, and it's never actually dealing with the hot potato in the first place. So in highly anxious and polarized families and churches, it becomes more difficult for the clinician to resist engaging the triangle. It's more difficult for me to jump into the middle of their mess. Because when I get into the mess, into their mud, objectivity is lost, and my clinical judgment is compromised because I can't see things clearly when I'm in the middle. Now I want you to substitute me and my for clinician clinical. In highly anxious, polarized families and churches, it becomes more difficult for me to resist engaging in the triangle. Then my objectivity is lost, and my clinical objectivity and intention is compromised. Because now I'm roped into their problems. Because the more I get involved in their problems, the more I experience the distress of those problems. So are they helpless, or do you just want to feel needed? Because some of us like helping. Is that right? It feels good to help, right? And there are good reasons to help, and there are some good stories about why we should help. So these are some narratives we tell ourselves. They need me. They need my help. We're just going down the line. I'm their pastor. They're my family, my friend. It's my job, my responsibility. I know what to do. I'm the rescuer. I'm the helper. I'm the peacemaker here. I can fix this. I can take one for the team. I can sacrifice myself. So we tell ourselves these things, these stories, these narratives about what's happening in order to keep us participating in other people's business. So it's a good thing they called me. I'm a neutral party and a great listener. And we might say, now when I talk to the other person on your behalf, I need to hear their side of the story too, and now I'm caught in the middle, blessed to be the middleman. The more we go in to try and mediate this stuff, the more we take on the anxiety of that relationship. The more I get involved, the more messy it gets. Sometimes they tell us stories about ourselves, like, you were such a good listener. You've always been a consistent shoulder to cry on whenever I need it. You've always been a source of wisdom. I'm so glad I can come to you and count on you when I need help. And then some of my favorites, I'm just worried about so-and-so. Can we talk about them? And that's this person coming and sharing some information with you about this other person they were involved with. Or, I need your advice. I need your help. And these are subtle ways to get you roped into their triangle. Worry is often used as a way to justify gossip and triangulation. When we're worried about something, we feel like we have to do something about it. But just because we're worried doesn't mean we have to do something about it, especially if it's someone else's business. We have some snow up here once in a while, right? Okay, so this is snow that's been moved. There's been a truck or a dozer. Whoa, hello. Am I doing that? I don't know. Surprise. Okay, so does this snow look hard or soft? Why hard, why soft? Both, so there's some hardness, some softness, okay. So as the truck comes by and with a plow and pushes the snow here, how is this person going to get out of their walkway? What are they gonna have to do? They're gonna have to shovel, yeah. And what do they have to shovel? Snow that somebody else put there, right. How about this situation? Does this look hard or soft? How is this car gonna back out? It's not, okay. If this person wanted to get their car out, what would they have to do? Shovel, okay, good. Or we're picking this concept up. Okay, in this situation, how am I gonna get into this garage to get my vehicle? Shovel, right? And maybe a shovel's not gonna do it depending on how hard packed this snow is. So this happened in Detroit, Michigan. There was someone who was upset with this store owner. I think it was like an AutoZone, auto parts type store. And this person got called to plow the snow early in the morning. So they pushed all the snow right up to the door so that the patrons would have to step over that to get into the store. This is what happens in our relationships. We push anxiety around like plows because we don't want to deal with it. So imagine, there's 6 people on the block, 6 houses in a row. One person goes, they shovel their snow, and they shovel all their snow on their driveway to the right, to the next person's driveway. Next person comes. They have to deal with their snow and the previous person's snow, right? So now there's double the snow, and they move all of that snow to the next person's driveway. So now the third person has 1, 2, 3 driveways worth of snow to shovel, and what do? They move it somewhere else. This is what happens. This is just pushing snow around. We are just pushing anxiety around in our families, and we think that's getting rid of it. But is this getting rid of the snow? No. It's just pushing it around. And we're really good at pushing it around. And sometimes it's the people who are the weakest and the most fragile in our families and our churches that end up getting more snow pushed towards them because they don't have enough power or agency to be able to push back as much. So often it's the youngest people in the family, the people who are most vulnerable, that end up experiencing more snow at their front door. All right, can you recall any triangle examples in the story of Abraham? Give me 3 people in a triangle in the story of Abraham. Good, Sarah, Hagar, and Abraham. Excellent, that's a triangle. Give me another one. Ishmael, Abraham, and Sarah. Good. Give me another one. Joseph. And who else is in the triangle with Joseph? Brothers and father. Good. You mention any 3 people in the story, that's going to be a triangle, right? Right? You just name 3 people, any people in the story, and that's going to be a triangle. So there is definitely triangulation in the Abrahamic narrative. We don't actually have to participate in triangles. There's a better way. We don't have to get sucked in whenever other people want to put their snow on our driveway. We don't have to take responsibility to shovel their snow that they're trying to drop off at our front door. So when we allow ourselves to be triangulated into other people's stuff, we don't actually remove anxiety, we're just shoveling it around. And we think that our driveway is clear, and it might be clear, but the snow isn't gone. It's just put on someone else's driveway. The result is we perpetuate the practice of spreading anxiety, snow, hot potatoes, to and from those we love. So we teach people it's okay for you to pour your anxiety onto me, and it's also okay for me to pour my anxiety onto you. So we all agree this is a social contract. This is what we're going to do. What can happen is people can be stuck with a lot of snow that's not theirs. They spent a lot of time shoveling their driveway because they didn't want to say no when someone is bringing their snowplow that direction. They didn't want to say no. So they waited till the person was gone, and they spent a lot of energy dealing with that snow that pushed their direction. So, again, the extent to which you become responsible for or try to change the relationship between 2 others, the more you will experience the stress of that relationship. So what happens to the system? What happens to the family? What happens to the church? People become dependent on others to manage their anxiety. They become dependent on other people to deal with snow. I expect you to deal with the snow because I gave it to you. It's your job to take care of it. This is what I want from you. Conflict is not managed directly. Instead, we try and find alternative ways to resolve the conflict. Then nobody assumes responsibility for their own anxiety and their own unresolved tension. Because why take responsibility for it when I can just shovel it down the road to someone else to deal with? So anxiety and issues become stuck and frozen in the family and in the church. And this prevents growth and compromises objectivity because we're so busy pushing around hot potatoes, shoveling around snow, instead of dealing with our own hot potatoes and our own actual snow. And we start to think that anytime I feel anxious, it's all mine, but it's not all mine. A lot of the stress we experience is not ours, but we have accepted it and taken it from other people. So, I've done quite a bit of topping, and I want to make sure that we are able to stay on track. So, in groups of 2, 3, or 4, I want you to talk amongst yourself and ask yourself these questions. What is a triangle? What's a relational triangle? How does it work? Why are triangles, not dyads, not just 2 people, the basic building blocks of emotional systems? What are some reasons we willingly participate in triangles? What happens to us and or the system when we participate in the triangle? So I want you to get in small groups, try and answer these questions, and then we will process the process when we're done. Again? All right, who wants another minute? Another minute to go through these questions? No? Okay, so help me out. What is an answer that you heard from your own group, or maybe from another group, you thought was a good answer for what is a triangle and how do they work?
Sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
Okay, tell me more.
Like you're part of a triangle, but you're helping people and you don't get involved.
Okay,
I myself are in a triangle right now. My poor daughter is trying to negotiate stuff. Anyway, she's getting more stressed.
okay, okay. So sometimes we get involved in the triangle, sometimes we don't. So sometimes we participate in a triangle, but what is a triangle? Someone else. We have a roving mic to help us. Three parties, that's right, 3 parties, good. Right. And not always 3 persons, right? It can be 2 people and something else, or 2 other things and a person, or 3 things and no people, right?
Triangle is a three-sided figure.
3-sided figure, thank you. Good, we have someone who likes math, right. Yes, is there a hand over here?
The Godhead is a trinity, a triangle.
It definitely is.
But it is a perfect.
It is definitely a triangle. And we'll talk a little bit about, we'll kind of dabble into that as we go on. Yeah, good. Okay, why are triangles and not dyads? Why are 3 people and not 2 people the basic building blocks of emotional systems? Oh, here's the mic.
Now I can't talk.
Yeah.
2 people will have opposite.
Holding the mic, but away from myself.
2 people will be not in agreement. They will be at each other's ends.
So some tension between 2 people.
Yeah.
A tiebreaker. The third person's the tiebreaker. That's good.
There's no mediator between them, or have them step back and take a look at what's going on.
Yes, good, yes. There's a hand back here too. Make Chris run around a little bit, get some exercise.
Giving him this exercise. It just struck me that causes us, I would think most times, to be more accountable and objective when there's a third party.
Okay. This is what we believe, that when we incorporate another person, they can be objective. But as soon as they get involved, objectivity is lost, right? As soon as they get involved in our distress, then they experience some of the stress of that relationship, and they cease to be as objective as they could be the more they get involved. So why are triangles not as the basic building blocks of emotional systems? Because relationships are made up of 3 parties, not just 2. There's always this third party involved that ends up affecting our relationship, even if it's indirectly. So what are some reasons, quote unquote, that we willingly participate in triangles? What are some reasons we participate in triangles? Oh, we have a roving mic here, which is sweet.
Well, we participate in triangles because usually we want somebody to agree with us.
We want someone
So
to agree with us. So if I can find someone to take my side, I feel better. Yeah, I feel better about myself, and we both agree that this person's wrong. Okay, what are some other reasons we willingly participate in triangles?
You think you can solve their problems?
We think we can solve their problems, right? We have the knowledge, we have the experience. I have a solution for you. Let me sell you something you need. Good.
Or sometimes we think the third person will side with us, and so there's 2 against 1.
So then it becomes 2 against 1. Good, good. And yet there's a hand back there. Other reasons we participate in triangles.
I sometimes think that we just need an answer and we don't know where to go for it. And we're hoping that something will enlighten us.
Because we can't have a solution. We need to find a solution outside of me and the other person. We need to find someone with some outside information to solve our problem. Okay? And sometimes it works, sometimes it does not work. Yes?
Somewhere in the Bible it says to share one another's burdens.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I'm glad we will address this later on, right? So if that's a rule of the community and everyone is willing to do this, then it works. What if some people are freeloading on this idea? Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit more down the road. Good. Okay, so there's lots of reasons why we might participate in triangles. Because we want to help, because we need an answer for someone else. Maybe this is just what we're used to. We don't even recognize it as triangles. I'm trying to increase some insight into what's happening. And what happens to us and or the system, the family or the church, when we continue to participate in triangles and be brokers of anxiety and push snow around? What happens? Give me a hand and we'll have a microphone come your way. Oh, nobody wants to raise their hand now. Be on record.
It creates stress.
It creates stress. And why does it create stress?
Because we all want to be right.
We all want to be right. I would say, instead of, I like what you're saying, if I would substitute one word, it would be, it just moves around stress. And just in the passing of snow, we're going to get wet. We're going to get cold. Just because we're brokering other people's anxiety, we're going to take a hit because of that, and we're not actually getting rid of any stress. So we're touching a lot of snow that maybe is not ours to shovel. And if that happens, then we all agree that this is how we operate. This is just what we do. And it's just a social contract that you shove snow my direction, and I will shove snow your direction. And nobody takes accountability for their own stuff. And all of a sudden, this gets locked into the family system or the church system, and this is just how we operate. And there's a new level, the amount of stress that people handle and experience in this system. Okay, yeah, hand here.
Is it possible that God intended that he would be the third person? Because it says in in Ecclesiastes or Proverbs, a three-pronged cord cannot be broken. Mm-hmm. I'm just curious. There seems to be a lot of three and triads throughout Scripture. So
yes.
I just wondered.
A three-legged stool is always more stable than a two-legged stool, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is the other reason why three is the building block of relationship, not just two, because having that third person adds some stability. And we know it wasn't just Adam and Eve, right? God was there as well. So it's always been triangles. Triangles provide stability. Good. So now let's increase our awareness of how we participate in these triangles, and then we will explore how we can do some things differently. All right. Let's talk about our role, our position, and then eventually we'll be talking about the stability we experience in the triangles. So before we move forward, let's kind of recap. I want you to think about relationships in terms of threes, not twos, because anytime there's an addition or a removal of a third party, that can affect what happens between the other two people, right? We know that couples so I have a 1 and a 4-year-old, and that definitely affected my relationship with my wife. And I know when they grow up and when they change and mature, that's also going to affect the relationship with my wife, right? And hopefully when they grow up and hopefully when they leave and they are successful in the world, when they leave the house, that will also affect the relationship between my wife and I, right? So what other people do affects the relationship between me and another person. And to believe that it's just me and you against the world, that's not the case. The world is definitely affecting us. The presence or removal of a third person, a third party, definitely affects the relationship between you and I. So I want you to expand your perspective, relationship about threes, not twos. And threes can be more stable unless it's really dysfunctional. Then threes can be worse. It can be really, really unstable. I'm guessing we've sat in chairs on ground, maybe a 3-legged stool on ground that's not level, and you're always trying to find the right place to balance, and you're always moving quite a bit. Sometimes that happens in triangles. Some triangles are unstable. Some triangles are stable. We'll talk about that later on this afternoon. So your role, your position in the triangle, and then finally later this afternoon, we'll be talking about the stability of the triangle itself. So your role in the triangle. We can play up to 3 different roles. And not every triangle has all of these roles represented. These are just the options of the menu. When you go to a food truck, you can buy one of these 3 different items. These are what's available for you. These are the 3 different roles you can play. You can generate anxiety. You can amplify anxiety. Or you can dampen anxiety. Those are the 3 basic roles that you can play. So you generate anxiety, you make it bigger, you amplify it, or you dampen it, calm it down. Those are the 3 different roles you can play in a triangle. The person who generates the anxiety, they introduce the anxiety to the triangle. Hey, here's something we could be aware of. This is what I'm worried about. Or have you heard about so-and-so? That can generate anxiety. That brings new information into the triangle. That person is generating. They are bringing snow into the triangle and say, hey, we should worry about the snow. What are we going to do about it? The amplifier is someone who makes this a big deal. Whoa, look at this big thing of snow. That's a huge hot potato. What are we going to do about it? And the dampener, okay, this is snow, and this is a hot potato, but it doesn't mean we have to upend our lives. Let's just think about this. We have the generator, the amplifier, and the dampener. And each triangle does not necessarily have all three of these roles at the same time. What that means is not every triangle will have a generator, an amplifier, and a dampener. Sometimes a triangle will have a generator, another generator, and the third person is the amplifier, amplifying both of them, right? And sometimes one person who first generated the anxiety will then amplify the anxiety. So they'll introduce it, and then they'll make a big deal about it. So if we go back to the previous story of Rebecca, and there's that one line from Esau, like, far be it from me, like, I'm going to kill my brother. She took that one line, and she amplified it into 4 verses. Jacob, did you hear what your brother said? He's so angry, he's going to kill you. You better get out of here because he said he's going to kill you. You better go to Padamaran, and then I'll send for you after he's done being angry with you because he's such an angry man, and then you can come back. So she was amplifying what was happening, trying to make a big deal about it so that, instead of me telling you, why do you think she was amplifying the anxiety? Fear, good. And what do you think she's hoping will happen if she amplifies it loud enough? What? He will flee. So she's looking for someone to take action. And not her, right? Someone else to take action. The person who amplifies anxiety, they are looking for someone to take action here. Someone other than them, right? I'm looking for someone else to take action. The anxiety generator is where the anxiety first shows up. They introduce the anxiety to the triangle. So they bring anxiety from unresolved conflict as their +1. Hey, did you hear about so-and-so? We've got a problem over here. The amplifier catches that anxiety and reacts to it, makes it bigger so that someone will take action. Someone's got to do something about this. And it's not going to be me. I'm amplifying it. I'm just pointing it out. Someone else has got to do something about it. And sometimes the person who is amplifying, they actually think they're helping, but they are inadvertently amplifying. For example, someone comes to you with a problem, and they bring the little problem to you, and you go, whoa, this is a big problem. I'm going to help you. I'm going to put down everything. I'm going to stop. I'm going to clear my whole day, and I'm going to march over that to this other person who did you wrong. I'm giving peace of my mind. And I'm going to rescue you from this anxiety. And in doing so, I'm telling this person who brought the anxiety that they can't handle it. It's so big that you can't do anything about it. I need to step in to rescue you. That's one way we amplify it. We try and save them from it. Another way we amplify it is when we try and dismiss it or not make a big deal about it. This is different from the dampener role. This is the amplifier who's trying to say, don't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. So let's say a child comes home, a middle school boy, let's say he's 13 years old, he's in 8th grade, and he comes home and he works up the courage to talk to his parents, and he says, some kids made fun of me today. They called me frog face. And the parent, who doesn't want to make a big deal about it, goes, kids will be kids, not that big of a deal, and shuts that person down. So now this middle schooler who tried to work up the courage to tell their parents about it just got shut down. Do you think their anxiety disappears? No. It gets amplified because now the one person they thought they could tell can't help them. So now what do? I have to go back to school to face these kids again, and now I'm froggy face at school, and I have no one to help me. Boom, my anxiety is just amplified. So when you dismiss other people's problems as not that big of a deal, oh, just get over it, you're actually amplifying the anxiety because you're dismissing how severe it is. We think we're helping, but in those cases, we're actually amplifying the anxiety in that triangle. Anxiety dampener calms down the distress in a non-reactive way and reduces the anxiety, often through a non-anxious presence, which means they're not going to get ruffled by other people introducing anxiety into the triangle. They're not going to react, whoa, we got to solve this right now. Whoa, that's a big deal. I can't believe that happened to you. Okay. All right, let's think through this. Let's talk about this. They're not going to emotionally react. So the dampener is someone who does not catch the anxiety. I'll say it again. The dampener is someone who does not catch other people's anxiety and take it on as their own. So they're not going to react to it in the way that most of us would. You have the generator, the amplifier, and the dampener. I have done all three of these roles at different times. I have done all three of these roles in the same triangle at different times. We can move between these two, and this is often a subconscious process. We don't even know we're doing it. We don't always recognize when we are fulfilling these roles, but I promise you, we are doing one of these three things in our triangles. Ask me a question before I move on. Well, real quick, I want to make sure we get this on record.
Well, it's a hypothetical case. So let's say someone is saying something very bad about me. Okay? And it's my wife and myself. I tell her because I am distressed over it.
Yes. And
what would you recommend in that kind of a scenario? How would you handle that? There's the generator, there's the amplifier, and there's the dampener.
Good. So what's happening is, and what is your name?
Anthony.
Anthony, thank you. So someone has said something mean to Anthony, right? He's experienced the distress of that relationship. So he's in triangle with this person, maybe someone else, and he turns to his partner and introduces that anxiety into this relationship, hoping that he'll get some emotional support. Is this correct? Yeah. I need some help with this, honey. Maybe not in those languages, but like, he said it again. Or I can't believe what this person said to me on the street. You're introducing anxiety into the triangle. So as long as we recognize what's happening, and depending on her response, she might go like, that's nothing. Let me tell you what happened to me today. And all of a sudden, she's dismissed what happened to you and made her, now she's introduced something, and then she's hoping to make it bigger than yours so that this is all hypothetical. I don't know what your wife, I'm just making this up since she might introduce her thing she's dealing with because she's been waiting to tell you. She pushes yours off to the side, which can amplify your anxiety about it because you're hoping to get some support, emotional support from that. She brings hers up, flops that on the table. Let me tell you what happened to me today. Oh, makes a big deal. And then you have a choice. You can react to, what? They did what to you? I'm going to give them a call right now. So then you might amplify what she brought in. So all of a sudden there's this do-si-do back and forth of people introducing anxiety and amplifying it. Or maybe she goes, oh, well, guess we can't do anything about that. Too bad. And so you were looking for emotional support. Instead, she got really practical on you and said, well, we can't control other people, so not much we can do about it. And you're like, well, okay. When we have conversations with people, and they're trying to introduce anxiety into the conversation, one of the best things you can do is you can say, okay, do you want comfort or do you want action? Do you want me to listen or do you want me to do something? Because sometimes they just want us to listen, but we might feel uncomfortable listening because we want to do something, resolve the problem, right? So other times people want us to do something, but we just listen. And that can amplify their anxiety. And sometimes we think if we just go and solve the problem, then our emotional response to the problem will disappear. Just flutter away. So if I can just solve the problem, then we're not going to feel that way anymore. But imagine that Pastor Chris was driving to church on Sabbath morning, and he's running a little bit late for some reason. And he's getting to church, and he's like a mile away, all of a sudden flat tire in his car. Now, he knows how to change his put a spare tire in, but he has to pull over. Oh no, I gotta change my tire. I'm in my suit and tie. Okay, take off my jacket. Like, oh boy, like I'm a little bit late. I'm gonna call my elders, let them know like just to stall, because I was late anyway, so I gotta go change my tire. So he's gotten a little bit anxious about this. Again, hypothetical scenario. A little bit anxious about this, and one would think that if we could just quickly change his tire, then his anxiety would disappear, right? Just go away. But not necessarily. Because he's going to get down there, he's going to get sweaty, he's going to get dirty, there's going to be some mud here. There's going to be some streaks on his nice white shirt. He thought he took his tie off, but it kind of landed on his back and it slipped down to the mud. So now I was like, okay, now I have to preach without my tie. And so he's going to roll in maybe 15 minutes late. Well, everyone knew it was to have like, don't worry, Pastor Chris is coming, he's on his way. And he bursts through the door, he's like, whew, solved my problem. Well, he solved the problem of the tire, but his emotional response to that distress is usually what also needs some attention. So when your partner brings a problem to you, there's two problems. The problem of the issue, what's causing the distress, and then our emotional reaction to the problem. I call it a little p and a big P. So when someone introduces anxiety or a problem into the relationship, you're listening for the little p. Oh, here's what happened to them. Someone said something mean to me. But there's a big P in the background that needs to be addressed. Wow, how did you feel when that happened? And addressing that big P is usually something that is skipped in our relationships. Why? Because it's harder to do. To sit with someone else who's in pain or sad or afraid, that's hard to do. I'd rather just solve the problem than deal with that. So in this scenario, in this hypothetical scenario, when you're talking to your wife about this thing that happened, if she just starts to, well, let's just brainstorm. Let's talk about ways you can avoid this person. That's solving the little p, but it's not addressing the bigger P of how that made him feel. How are we feeling about this idea? So when we are amplifying, we can amplify the anxiety with regard to the little p or the big P. So this starts to get complex, right? Okay, Bryan, there's a generator and an amplifier. There's a big P, there's a little p, there's a dampener. We can change different roles. This is kind of messy. You're just talking a lot. Yeah, I'm talking a lot, but there'll be an opportunity for us to do a little conceptual check in our small groups to make sure we're on the same page. So when anxiety is met with more stress, we can amplify it, but when anxiety is met with calm, it diminishes. So we can decide how we respond to other people's distress when they introduce it into our triangle. This says, why are you dragging all of that negativity into this triangle? Because it needed to be brought to your attention. You know I can't resist making mountains out of your molehills. This isn't even my molehill. I don't care whose it was because it's mine now. This is what happens. Someone introduces something. We make a big deal about it. Then they might say, whoa, don't make a big deal about it. Well, I'm going to champion this because I'm invested in this now. And all of a sudden, this is my thing that I'm carrying on. I spend emotional energy dealing with other people's stuff. Okay, so the plan for part 2, we're going to be talking about the instability of the triangles. But I want to make sure we can do a little memory check. Oh, where is it? Okay, we're going to talk about your position in the triangle, then we'll take a break. Okay. All right, your position in the triangle is either an outsider or an insider. Basically, that just means if you're an outsider, it's not your business. If you're an insider, it is your business. So you're either an insider and you're taking part in it, or you're an outsider and you're not taking part of it. So you have the roles, right? The anxiety, the person who introduces the anxiety, the person who amplifies the anxiety, or the person who dampens it. But you could also be an insider, part of the problem, part of your responsibility, or an outsider. So in some triangles, in many triangles right here, I'm an outsider. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'm gone. So we could talk about stuff, and I know it's not mine to deal with, right? So I'm definitely more of an outsider. Unless I start to get invested in this hypothetical scenario between you and your wife, and I start to ask more questions, and I try and find your wife and have a conversation with her. This is what you should do differently. Here's some suggestions, and I start to get involved, then objectivity is lost, and I start to take on some of the distress of that relationship. So when I move from an outside position to an inside position, I start to experience more distress. and it's usually preferable to be on that outside position. Sometimes the two people want you close so they can hand you hot potatoes. Other times they want you far away. They're kind of fickle when it comes to that. It's usually best to just take the outside position, because when you can be on the outside, it's easier to remain objective about what might be happening. As soon as you get involved, that snow is front and center right on your driveway, and now it's hard to think about anything because all that snow is right there. So here's the outsider, here's the insider. A lot of distress here. You want to be on the outside. When it's not your stuff, you want to be on the outside. So sometimes it feels awkward being the odd person out, but you're allowed to stay outside of their business. Even if they invite you, cajole you, strong-arm you back into their business, you can say, whoa, I'm on the outside. This is not mine to deal with. This is yours to deal with. So, more small group time. What is the difference between generator, amplifier, and dampener roles? Does a triangle always have all of these three roles represented? What is the difference between an insider and the outsider, in which position is preferable? So get your small groups again and answer these questions. Keep discussing. Raise your hand if you want another minute. Okay, you got it. I'm generous. Feeling generous today. Get another minute. Okay, help me out. What is the difference? Maybe we can get a roving mic. Perfect. Raise your hand if you felt you heard a good example or answer of what the difference is between a generator, amplifier, and dampener. Someone's got voluntold over here. Yep.
So when I was at work one day, someone jumped on my case. Another person stepped in and said, she's got it. So that was a triangle. I don't know, the person that jumped on me was the generator.
Yep.
I was just the silent victim. And then the other person stepped in and said, she's got this, leave her alone.
Okay. So that person jumped in. Do you feel like they were dampening the situation, or they were trying to amplify it enough so that this person would like back off? Because if you make a big deal about something, oh, maybe I came on too strong, so I'm just going to back off.
Right. So this person has been addressed multiple times by administration for being a generator. And so his assistant was stepping in as a dampener.
To try and even out.
And he immediately realized that she was dampening and saying, back off. And so anyway, it was very interesting.
So this is an interesting dynamic in this situation where one person knows they better be a dampener, other else, something else might happen. If I don't dampen the situation immediately, then this might go haywire. So the question is, are they really dampening it, or are they just trying to dismiss how big? It's not that big of a deal, just calm down. And I don't know that.
Question. Was this other guy really the generator, or were you the generator and he was the amplifier?
Maybe, I don't know.
Because you have your own stress. So you're generating your stress.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he's going to really amplify it and try to blow it out of proportion.
Possibility. Maybe she was doing something that was upsetting the triangle, and he was reacting to it. Or maybe she was doing everything just fine, and he got upset about it, and he thought that she should know about his upsettedness.
I was doing everything just fine.
Yeah, you were perfect, right. In this scenario, not only were you the victim, you were crystal clean and pure and did everything perfect. You were the perfect role. You weren't even one of these, right? You're the fourth role. So it's hard to know whether it's me who's generating the anxiety and someone's amplifying it, or if someone's generating it but blaming me for it. Sometimes they come in, I have an issue with you because you do this. When I hear that, I think, are they amplifying my own anxiety, make a big deal about it? Maybe, but usually more likely that they are finally plopping their anxiety on the table, saying, this needs to be addressed. So oftentimes when someone has a complaint, when they bring the complaint against you, and you had no idea, like this came out of left field, then they are generating it. But if you know that you do this activity, and then someone calls you out on it, then they are amplifying the distress that you've been creating. And it's sometimes tricky to know which one of those it is. Good. So again, help me out in like 1 or 2 sentences. What's the difference between a generator, amplifier, and dampener?
Okay, so
Here's the mic. Here it comes.
if I lost my keys, and then my wife says, well, where did you leave them? I'm generating it because I lost my keys and I want to find
And you
them.
told her about it. And then if
an
she addresses
amplifier.
the smaller case P, well, the problem is, like, if we just find your keys, then the problem's solved. Then that could potentially be amplifying it if she responds in that tone, right? Well, where'd you leave it, huh? But if you probably never do that. Yeah, this is a hypothetical scenario. She would never do that. She's more like, okay, so let's just walk. Where was the last place you might have had your keys? Right. Because when someone amplifies, what are they hoping will happen if they amplify the anxiety? Somebody will take action to fix it, right? So the generator introduced the anxiety. The amplifier makes it bigger so that it has to be addressed, right? And then what does the dampener do? How do they calm it down? They calm it down by saying, that's not a big deal. Get over it. Is that how they calm it down? Say it again?
or reassurance that there'll be a resolution.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
They'll turn up.
We can find them. We can do this. Like, I bet we'll find your keys. I bet they'll turn up, right? Okay, let's take a deep breath. And the dampener does not catch the anxiety that's been introduced or amplified in the triangle. So the dampener does not catch other people's anxiety. There are hot potatoes that are being passed around, and the dampener says, whoa, not my hot potato. I'm not going to participate in this. Oh, this is my driveway. I don't need this snow. Let's just think through this so the dampener is not reacting to that anxiety. Oh, the dampener is positive most of the time. If we are dismissing it, then we're actually amplifying it. Yeah, if we dismiss the problem, we actually amplify it.
Question. Can a generator and an amplifier be one and the same?
Yeah, I can toggle back between them, right? I can generate the anxiety, and then if no one says anything, did you hear what I just said? I lost my keys and I have to go to the airport right now. I'm amplifying. It's got to be a big deal. Now, like the whole family's, you got to drop everything. We got to find my keys right now. So I introduced it, generated it. No one responded. So I got more anxious. Now I'm going to amplify it so that some sort of action can be done. And then later on, I could say, okay, let's just calm down. Like, let's just be level-headed about this. Like, let's walk back to where I first noticed I lost my keys. So now I'm calming everyone else down so I can go from generating to amplifying to calming to dampening. Yes,
Is there a dampener can be a rescuer too?
Usually if you come into rescue, you are actually amplifying it because you're teaching the other person, oh, you can't handle this. I need to come and save you from this. And if this happens enough, this person will start to believe, oh, she's right, I can't handle this myself. I need someone to come and rescue me. And this will become a new pattern. I have a problem, I have to make a big deal about it so that someone else can come and solve this.
Well, I look at the dampener as a person who gives the person, the generator, an opportunity to solve their own problem.
Oh, you must have looked ahead in my slides. Shame on you. That is something that's going to show up in this afternoon. So you're cheating, but I will accept that. Yes, you're going to be giving other people the opportunity to find their own solutions. You're not going to abandon them. You're not going to rob them of the opportunity of doing it themselves. And a rescuer robs other people of the opportunity of finding their own solution. Yes?
I might be jumping the gun as well. So I was going to ask then, how do you minister to others? Ooh. How do you, help?
How do you do that, right?
Yeah,
without being a cold-hearted robot. Not mine, deal with it yourself, right? We'll talk about that this afternoon. Good. Okay, so does a triangle always have all three roles represented in it? No, not necessarily. Great. And what is the difference between an insider and an outsider, and which position is preferable? Outside. Why outside? Because what?
You're not getting in their mess.
Because you're not getting in their mess. That's right. The outside position is preferable. The inside position, you are up in the business.
So is an outsider just a listener?
So is the outsider a listener? It depends on how you're listening. Depends on how and we'll talk about this later on this afternoon. Okay, we're going to take a break, a bio break, a walk-around break. We'll be back at, is it 3:15?
And just a real quick update. Jerry Waddell is on his way home. They were just here a moment ago. He's doing okay. Wasn't heart, wasn't stroke. It was low blood pressure and dehydration. So Jerry is just fine. So thank you so much for your prayers for Jerry. They're on their way home to get some food and rest. So have a good break.
All right. If you can hear the sound of my voice, this is a secret sign between you and me that we're going to be starting back up. So come on back in if you can hear this. This next part is one of my favorites because we get pretty technical, but hopefully this is going to open up a whole new world to you when it comes to triangles. And then at the very end, we're going to get real practical about, now that we know all these things, what do we do? What do we do with this? How can we use this to live and act in relationships in a more adaptive, healthy manner? Okay, stable and unstable triangles. That's what we're going to be talking about for the next hour and a half. Stable and unstable triangles. So the stability of a triangle, whether it's stable or unstable, is its own label. Stability and instability. Totally separate from whether the triangle is healthy or dysfunctional or toxic or awesome or we enjoy it. Totally separate from whether the triangle is stable or unstable. So the stableness or the instability of a triangle has nothing to do necessarily with how healthy or enjoyable the triangle is. They are totally separate. Okay? Totally separate. And I'll probably have to go over this a couple times because in our minds we think of instability as bad and stability as good, but that's not the case. Stability just means the triangle resists change. It's stable. It doesn't want to change. Instability means the triangle does not feel stable, so it wants to change. So a stable triangle wants to stay the same. An unstable triangle wants to change and become stable. And that is totally separate from whether or not there is dysfunction or not in the triangle. Okay? Here we go. I want you to think of the triangles themselves as having power, separate from the people or the entities or the parties in the triangle. The triangle itself has a mind of its own. So the stability of a triangle predicts whether or not the triangle itself wants to change. It doesn't matter who's in the triangle itself either wants to change because it feels unstable. The triangle itself, not the people in it, the triangle itself feels unstable, or the triangle itself is stable and resists change. So stable triangles want to stay the same. Unstable triangles want to change. And again, the stability or instability of the triangle is totally separate from whether or not there's a lot of dysfunction or no dysfunction in the triangle. All we're talking about is whether the triangle itself wants to change or resist change. Okay? So, do the labels of stable, unstable describe the amount of dysfunction in the triangle? No. What is stability talking about? Stable triangles want to stay the same, and unstable triangles want to change. Oh, I love it. This is going to be good. If we can get this, we're going to save like 10 minutes down the road. So, in just in case we didn't get it, stable triangles, the triangle itself resists change. This is separate from the people or the parties or the entity that make up the triangle. It's the triangle itself has a mind of its own. Stable triangles resist change. And unstable triangles, the triangle itself wants to change. It wants to become stable. And if I'm a stable triangle, does that have anything to do necessarily with how dysfunctional the triangle is? No, it's separate, totally separate category. I've never tried moving to the other side. Every time I do this seminar, I try and figure out a way to distinguish these two because this is separate from how functional or dysfunctional the triangle is. Just to make sure we're on the same page. Stable triangles want to stay the same. Unstable triangles want to change. So they want to stay the same when they're stable, and there are two types of stable triangles. Here we go. So this one, the black lines are going to indicate that these three individuals all get along, okay? This is a stable triangle. This stable triangle wants to stay the same. This stable triangle will resist change. This is also a stable triangle, even though there is some tension between these people and these people. This is also a stable triangle. So does stability or instability have anything to do with how much dysfunction is in the triangle? No, it's separate. Stable triangles want to stay the same, and unstable triangles want to change. Here are two types of unstable triangles. We'll spend the next hour going over these and looking at examples. This is an unstable triangle. This wants to change. This person gets along with friend A and friend B, but these two experience conflict. This is an unstable triangle. This is also an unstable triangle. Nobody gets along with nobody else. These two triangles want to change. They want to become one of these. These two stable triangles resist change. Doesn't mean they can't change, but the triangles themselves will resist change. Here we go. Next hour, we're talking about the same thing. Here's some biblical examples. Ruth, Naomi, Boaz. This is a stable triangle. We all get along. One big, happy family. This triangle is a stable triangle, and stable triangles want to stay the same. Awesome. Oh, good. This is going to be good. This is also a stable triangle at this point in time, right? In Genesis 16, Abram and Sarah and Hagar, in fact, it was Sarah's idea to bring Hagar into it. So at one point in time, this was a stable triangle, right? But we know from earlier on, the addition of or the removal of a third party can change relationships between other people. So we know that this relationship changes down the road in the story, right? But at this point in time, this is a stable triangle. This stable triangle resists change. Here's another stable triangle. We have Miriam, baby Moses, Pharaoh's daughter. This is a stable triangle, and here's our first introduction to an interlocking triangle. Here's Jochebed, Moses' mother. And all of a sudden, we have this sweet arrangement. These are all stable triangles. Here's the first one. This is the stable triangle. This is a stable triangle with Jochebed, baby Moses, and Miriam. Miriam, Pharaoh's daughter, and baby Moses. This is a stable triangle. And baby Moses, Jochebed, and Pharaoh's daughter. This is also a stable triangle. All four of these triangles are all stable. That means all four of these triangles resist change because they're all stable. We on board with this so far? Okay. So what this means is because the triangles resist change, they are resisting changes in one of these legs of the triangle. Because we're stable. Why would you want to go and mess this up? The triangle resists change. It wants to remain stable. This is a stable triangle because I'm a Seahawks fan, Seattle Seahawks fan, football team, and I'm not a fan of the Patriots. So I'm always against the Patriots, and I'm always for whoever is playing against the Patriots. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. My enemy, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. I have me and my best coworker. No bond is stronger than two workers who hate the same person. We have a common enemy over here. You and I, we have a common enemy. This person is bad. We can agree on that. This is also a stable triangle. Even though there are two lines of distress, they're both going in the same direction. We know this person is the villain. This person is the bad guy. So this is also a stable triangle. Stability or instability, does that have anything to do with how much dysfunction is in the triangle? Nope. That's right. Go right back over here. We're just talking about stability and instability. Good. So this is a stable triangle. This triangle resists change. What that means is if one of these three parties is going to try and change one of these legs of the relationship, the triangle is going to resist that because this is a stable triangle. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your seed and her seed. God was creating a stable triangle with a common enemy. But the enemy wants to change this triangle somehow, right? Either put conflict here, or maybe put a straight line here. And that's kind of what we did with Eve, right? Like, are you sure God has your best interest in mind? Did he say you would surely die? Is that really what happened? So put a question mark, what's happening here? maybe I know more about the situation than you do. So the deceiver is trying to change this triangle. And the way God set it up, this was a stable triangle, so it takes a lot of effort to change this. But the deceiver is doing whatever he can to either make this a straight line or introduce some conflict here. His whole goal is to change this triangle. But God set it up as stable. Right. Here's an unstable triangle. This personally is my least favorite triangle because it's the most difficult triangle to be in, especially if you're in this position. Because you get along with this person, you get along with this person. Why can't you two just get along? If you two would just solve your problems, we'd all just be fine and dandy. This is a really taxing and difficult position to be in. But this is an unstable triangle because each of these individuals is wanting person Y to join them. Pick a side. So you, your partner, and maybe your parents. Maybe your partner doesn't get along with your biological parents. So whenever we all get together, you experience this instability. Maybe your partner's like, why don't you side with me? I married you. And your parents like, well, we're your parents. Are you really going to treat us that way? Are you going to let her treat us that way or him treat us that way? So you are forced, the triangle is trying to force you to pick a side. Because if you picked a side, then we'd be back in this situation where you have a common enemy. Two people agree this person is wrong or in the wrong. Where here, both of them want person Y to choose their side. Another example, you have friend 1, friend 2, and every Tuesday you go out and you get pizza on Tuesday pizza night, you and both your friends. And for a long time, all three of us went to get pizza. But for whatever happened, they got into a tiff with one another, got a little fight, and now we can't all go eat pizza together because they're not willing to be in each other's presence. So you have to go to pizza on Tuesday, and then also go to pizza on Thursday, which in of itself is not a bad thing. But now you can't be with both friends at the same time, and that's what you want. And this is difficult because you want them to get along, but now you have to go back and forth, and friend 1 will talk bad things about friend 2, and you have to hear it. And then you go over here, and friend 2 will say some bad thing about friend. So you're hearing it from both sides. This is an unstable triangle because what would make it stable is for you to pick a side and both agree that this person's in the wrong. So this is an unstable triangle, and the triangle itself is wanting to change. It may not be this person or this person or this person wanting to make the change, but the triangle itself has a mind of its own. The triangle wants to change, and all it wants is for one of these legs to change. If this becomes good, this is a stable triangle. If there's more tension here, that becomes a stable triangle because we have a common enemy. If this becomes tension, then again we have a common enemy over here. So this unstable triangle wants to become stable. Maybe you, a teenager, and a partner, and your partner is saying, this teenager is just unruly, you need to go talk with them, trying to triangulate you into the relationship so that you can get involved here. And the teenagers are like, Mom or Dad, they're just not listening to me. I like how you listen to me. At least you care about me. They're trying to pull you to their side. This is an unstable triangle. The unstable triangles are trying to change. So here's what's happening. We have unstable triangles up here. And if you're over here in this area, and you want to get here to one big happy family, you have to go from unstable to stable, and then back to unstable to get here. And oftentimes, we get stuck right here, where we have, on the right-hand side, upper right-hand side, we are unstable. So there's 2 black lines and 1 squiggly line. And instead of this relationship getting worked out, so we end up on the bottom right, usually we revert back here to this first stable triangle with 1 straight black line and 2 squiggly red lines. So you cannot serve 2 masters. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. You can't serve 2 masters. They're going to force you to pick a side. Because this is an unstable triangle, and unstable triangles want to change. So, before I talk to Chris, I didn't know what kind of worship music we had up here. I had no idea. I didn't know if he was team drums or teams no drums. And I'm guessing you served at different churches where you had different people on different sides. Is that right, Chris? Okay. So Chris has to navigate this. Okay. how do I make sure to continue to pastor, to take care of both sides when they're both wanting something different? Yes drums or no drums. Here's another scenario. Team law or team grace? And he has to make a decision. What side is he going to go on? Because sometimes people are really championing team law, other people are championing team grace, and he wants to be a pastor to both of them. And they want him to pick a side. And he may be like, well, I'm going to serve you because you're part of my church. So I'm going to be your pastor to help you regardless of which side you're on. Maybe he's team cat or team dog, right? So I hear he's team not dog because he got bit by a big dog, but yet he has a dog at his house. So I'm confused about which side he's on. Just pick a side, Chris. So this, it's a stable, do the cat and the dogs get along at your house? So because they get along, this becomes a stable triangle. Unstable triangles want to change. Unstable triangles want to become stable in whatever method that is. So if the cat and the dog get along, great. If they don't get along, if the cats and the dogs don't get along in the same house, it's going to be difficult for them at home, right? Because they're going to be like, you know what would be so much easier? If we just got rid of the cats, we wouldn't have this problem, right? Then it becomes a stable triangle because we have the enemy, the cats, and they're gone. And that's a simple solution, right? Remove the other party that is causing me distress. That's a nice, sweet, simple solution. But we'll see what happens in the story of Abraham when that sort of solution is presented. His other one, team masks or team not masks. In this situation, he's team sunglasses. Try not to pick a side, whether you want to wear a mask or not, whatever, that's your choice. Team Black Lives Matter or Team Blue Lives Matter. Team Clorox and ivermectin versus team vaccine. Team global warming, just people hugging trees, or team global warming, just God hugging us closer. Green carpet or red carpet. From what I understand, there are some flooring choices made over at the new building, right? Has anyone seen the flooring yet? Some people have? Okay. Is it this green chartreuse color? Or is it the burnt orange color? Neither one? Okay, so he was able to sidestep this by choosing a totally different color, right? Whew. From what I remember him saying, the carpet here, was it always this pattern with the blue and the yellow and the red? What color was it? Orange. Oh, so was it kind of like this? Okay. So whatever happened, we went away from this to, but not the green, we found a third option, more of the blue option, right? Okay. So we have Abraham, Hagar, and Sarah. Now here's the introduction of the third party. When we introduce a third party, it can change the relationship between two other people. We talked about this earlier this afternoon. So when Hagar gets pregnant, this relationship changes, right? Just by the introduction of this other person. It changed the relationship between these two. And now when the baby was born, it was clear that Sarah did not want to be participant of this. She was not recorded being there at the birth. And so Hagar and the baby have a common enemy, Sarah. So this triangle right here, is this triangle stable or unstable? Answer is stable. These two have a common enemy. But this one is unstable. You see that? Because Abraham trying to maintain a good relationship with Hagar as well as Sarah. So this is an unstable triangle, and unstable triangles want to change. And this is a stable triangle, and stable triangles want to stay the same. Oh, good. This is about to get real fun. I love this. Here we go. So we're going to kind of turn on its end. Let's notice there's this triangle and this triangle. And if I just rotate it, it's still the same triangle, right? You have a different point of view. So Sarah and Hagar and Abraham. This is an unstable triangle because Sarah's wanting Abraham to pick a side, right? Let's bring in Isaac and Ishmael, okay? So maybe Abraham wants to maintain a relationship with both of his sons. Hagar wants to maintain a relationship with her biological son. So is this a stable triangle or unstable? Good, right down here, this is a stable triangle. And this one is also stable, right? So you have two stable triangles and one unstable triangle. Seeing that? So let's first see that one leg between Sarah and Abraham, this is shared right now between two different triangles. You see that? This leg will eventually be shared, not just two triangles, but more than that. So one relationship between two people can be shared between multiple triangles at the same point in time. And some triangles are resisting change because they're stable. Some triangles want to change because they are unstable. Let's keep moving. We have this, we know that Ishmael ends up, the Hebrew word is Isaac-ing Isaac. Isaac-ing Isaac, and Sarah sees it, and she's had enough. And she says, get that woman and the lad, the boy, away from me. Send them off. So this is an unstable triangle. This right here, between Hagar, Sarah, and Ishmael, is this a stable triangle or unstable? Stable. These two have a common enemy. This is stable. There's another triangle here now. We have Sarah and Isaac and a common enemy, Ishmael. This is a stable triangle. So, what is the solution to this? We have some triangles that are stable, some are unstable. What is the simple solution that Sarah proposes? Get rid of them, right? Get them out of here, right? That's the simple solution. And then we just have, oh, finally, one big happy family. But we know that cutting people off didn't get rid of the anxiety, did it? If I have a 17-year-old female who lives in New York, and she does not like her parents, she does not like her parents' rules, she does not like that she has to be home at 11 p.m., when all of her other senior friends in high school, they can be home at 12. Why are you so strict with me? Why do you have rules and boundaries? This is so unfair. You didn't buy me a car. And one day her name is Jessica. She gets, apologies if there's anyone named Jessica. Anyone named Jessica in here? Good, Jessica's safe. Jessie gets up, she grabs money from her drawer, she pays money for a Greyhound, and takes the Greyhound all the way over here to Boise, Idaho, so she can live with her aunt and uncle, the McPhersons. Any McPhersons here? Oh, there are, okay. How about the Joneses? Okay. How about the Frays? Okay, good, no Frays here. So Jessica comes to live with her aunt and uncle, the Frays. Because she left her family with her really strict parents, does that mean all of the tension between her and her parents have suddenly disappeared? But she's in a totally different place. Because she moved physically, doesn't that mean that the tension between her and her parents disappeared? Because she's not with her parents, she's not under her parents' rules. So wouldn't it make sense the anxiety would then dissipate? No? Right. It may not be active, but it's still present, it's just latent. Because when her parents call and want to talk with her, she's activated. When her parents say, well, we're coming over for Thanksgiving in 4 weeks, she's going to feel it. She's going to feel that tension immediately. It's not disappeared, it's just latent. So in this situation, Sarah saying, we need to cut these people out, Abraham, choose a side. It could have been Sarah doing that. It could have also been this unstable triangle and this unstable triangle wanting to change. The unstable triangles wanted to change. We get rid of those people that are causing problems, and it'll be one big happy family, but we know that tension did not disappear, and we can follow that same tension, that rift in the family, followed through millennia on this earth, right? That anxiety did not disappear. If anything, it just grew. Triangles are forever and can outlive the people in them. Even though one person passes away, it does not mean the anxiety they shared with someone else disappears. It's just redistributed amongst the remaining family members. So, here's the second unstable triangle. Nobody gets along with anyone else. So we have Laban, Leah, and Jacob. Here's an unstable triangle. Unstable triangles want to change. Unstable triangles want to become stable. One of these wants to change, at least according to the triangle. Again, we have unstable triangles up here. So if there's an odd number, if you want to think about this, of lines between people that have some tension, it's unstable. So there's 3 and 1. If 3 or 1, those are unstable. If there's 2 or none, those are stable triangles. Triangles themselves have power. Because of this, the triangles themselves have influence over our interactions. What does this mean? This means if you can understand this, you can understand that the pressure to change or resist change may have nothing to do with the other people in the triangle. It could be the triangle itself. It could also explain why sometimes it's so difficult to repair relationships. Because if myself and Jessie, maybe Jessie's my daughter and I live in New York, between myself and Jessie, if my relationship between myself and Jessie is shared amongst multiple triangles that are all stable, those stable triangles will resist change. So I'm not just fighting the relationship. There are these other triangles that are impacting whether or not this relationship wants to change. What does this mean? It means we can use this to our advantage, not as a puppet master, not as pulling the strings, but you can help understand why some situations are so tricky. It's not just the people involved, it's the triangles as well. And maybe you're feeling a little bit like, oh, we talked about unstable triangles a lot, Bryan. I'm not sure if I totally get it. Good news is we have an opportunity for a concept check. We're going to meet together in groups and answer these questions. What is the difference between a stable and unstable triangles? Can you draw or provide an example of a stable triangle? Then can you draw or provide an example of an unstable triangle? So get back in your groups and try and answer these questions. And then we'll process the process. Who wants another minute to keep talking about this? Ooh, you didn't even hear me. That means you're focused. This is what I like. Keep it going. Keep it going. All right, raise your hand if you'd like another minute. Raise your hand if you'd like another minute to keep chatting about this. I see no hands raised, so I'll take that as an indication that you want to process the process to see if we get a really good understanding of this. All right. Someone help me out. Raise your hand. What is the difference between a stable versus an unstable triangle? And Chris is going to be quick to react. Difference between a stable versus an unstable triangle.
Stable triangle does not want to change. Unstable triangles want to change.
Boom, got it. Good, good. And bonus question, does the stability of a triangle, whether it's stable or unstable, have anything to do with the amount of dysfunction in the triangle?
No.
Okay, good. You have the mic. Yes, totally separate categories. Awesome, good. Can anyone draw or provide an example of a stable triangle? I couldn't hear you because you didn't have the microphone.
Abraham, Isaac, and Sarah.
Abraham, Isaac, and Sarah. Boom. Stable triangle. Excellent. And stable triangles want to stay the same. They're resisting change. Can someone else give me an example of an unstable triangle?
Jacob, Leah, and Laban.
We said Jacob, Laban, and who?
Laban.
Jacob, Laban, and Leah. That's right. Yep, those three. Unstable, because no one gets along. And unstable triangles want to change. Oh, good. We got this. This is going to get fun. I love this. Okay. Spouse A is friends with friend B and friend A. They get along. They get along. They always hang out after school to pick up their kids. And all of a sudden, these two have some sort of beef with one another. So spouse A can no longer spend time with both of these friends. What does spouse A do? Goes to talk with spouse B, right? Their partner. Because I don't want to make a choice between these two, but this is really difficult. What do you think about this? What should I do in this situation? So this person is introducing anxiety, right? And generating the anxiety, playing that role right now. Spouse B already has an opinion. Spouse B likes friend A, but does not like friend B. Okay? Already has this, was ready, like locked and loaded, does not like, clear preference. So this right here, is this a stable or unstable triangle? Good, spouse A, spouse B, and friend A, this is a stable triangle. How about this, spouse A, friend B, friend A, is this a stable or unstable triangle? Unstable. How about this one, spouse A, spouse B, and friend B, is this stable or unstable? Unstable, good. How about this one, spouse B, friend A, and friend B, is this stable or unstable? Stable, because there's a common enemy. So we have a mix of stable triangles and unstable triangles in these interlocking triangles. We on board with this? Okay. Spouse A, spouse B. They got married. 3 years later, they experienced some conflict. They're new at this. So spouse B talks with their biological parents, the in-laws of spouse A. Can you believe what's happening? Like, is this what partnership's supposed to look like? I can't believe they treated me that way. This, like a good parent, wants to give some advice. Well, clearly this person mistreated you. They weren't listening to you. They weren't doing a good job. So now, is this a stable or unstable triangle? Stable, that's right, it's a common enemy. And now these two are together. They agree that this person is in the wrong. Well, this person also has some parents they can talk with. Has a conversation with them. Can you believe what happened? That my partner talked with their parents about me. Oh, that should never happen. That should not be happening. So is this a stable triangle or unstable triangle? Good, okay. But these two also know each other. They went to school together. These parents went to school together. And they got on the phone with one another. How dare your daughter treat me that? How dare your son treat me that way? So all of a sudden, we have 4 triangles here. And real quick, this one, in-law A, in-law B, spouse A, is this stable or unstable? Ooh, I'm glad we're talking about that. This is a common enemy over here. Okay, right. So then in-law A, in-law B, and spouse B, is this stable or unstable? Oh, I'm glad we're talking about this. This is stable. We have a common enemy over here. How about this bottom triangle? In-law A and both spouses. Is this stable or unstable? Stable. Okay, how about in-law B and both spouses? Is this triangle stable or unstable? Stable. We have 4 stable triangles here, folks. And there's a clear rift between them, right? So these 4 stable triangles resist change, all of them. Good news is, these two realize we probably shouldn't be going to our parents with our problems. We should seek some counseling. Let's work out our relationship. All of a sudden, because this relationship changed, other triangles have already changed, right? This triangle right here, with in-law A and both spouses, is this stable or unstable? Unstable, that's right, because spouse A is trying to maintain a good relationship with both their parents and spouse B. This one right here, both spouses and in-law B, is this stable or unstable? Unstable. So now we have 2 unstable triangles and 2 stable triangles. So what happens is, this triangle is unstable and wants to change. And we're committed to each other because we worked this out in counseling. I should not have gone to you in the first place. So this unstable triangle wants to change to become stable. And while this could be repaired, what happens is spouse B says, look, Ma, if you're going to come over for Christmas, you got to get over that. You can't be behaving this way and get mad at my spouse. Like, she's cleaned up her act. So just calm down. If you're coming for Christmas, you better be on your best behavior. Because it's clear that this person should have never got involved. So now this is a stable triangle. You see that? Now we have a common enemy. In fact, when we look at this other unstable triangle, eventually spouse A says, you know what? It's between me and my partner. It's not your business. Like, your relationship with my spouse is one thing, just like my relationship with my spouse is another thing. So you two work it out. And we'll work it out. And part of the influence is because that was an unstable triangle. And now all of these triangles are now stable again. Let's look at it. This is a stable triangle with both spouses and in-law A. In-law A, in-law B, and spouse A, this is a stable triangle. Then in-law A, in-law B, and spouse B, this is a stable triangle. And both spouses and in-law B, this is also a stable triangle. And who is the villain in this situation? In-law B, all because they were willing to get involved in the first place. And then the triangles flipped on them. And now everybody's mad at them. And these are all 4 stable triangles. This person could have avoided it had they said, whoa, whoa, whoa. It sounds like you're sharing some personal stuff about your marriage. What do you think you're going to do about it? Putting it back on then, a little hint, but we're going to talk about it later on down the road. What are you going to do about it? To get this person to deal with their own stuff instead of coming in, oh, please tell me about it. I'm your mom, I'm your dad. I'm going to help you, instead of getting involved. If this person would have refused to get involved, they would not be on the outs with everyone else. Okay, triangles are forever. They outlast the people who are in them. Story time. Story time about a church. Hypothetical scenario, just made up. We have the church, we have some kids, and we have a school. Okay? Lots of churches experience this. And there are some people at the school that are maybe misusing money. Okay? Misusing money. And because of that, because the people in the church are misusing money, the people at the church changes their relationship with the school. Maybe more distrusting of what happens at the school because of the mismanagement of money. So this stable triangle, where all 3 get along, becomes unstable. You see that? Because now we have this interesting situation that unstable triangles want to change. So people, this is not praising, they're protesting what's happening. They're protesting what was happening over here, and they decided to send their kids somewhere else to a different school because they don't like what's happening over here. So these kids are now, well, I guess I can't go back to this school. I wonder why. My parents didn't fully explain it because that's adult stuff. But I know I can't go back there. I kind of miss that school, but maybe it's best if I'm at this school because that's what my parents say is what's best. So do what my parents say. So now this unstable triangle becomes stable because we have a common enemy. These people aren't going to stay here forever. They leave. Maybe they embezzle money or they just move to a new place. Who knows? But this triangle stays there. I should move this off here. Sorry about that. Some new families come into the church, and they're looking for a school to send their kids. And they hear that there's a church school. Oh, it makes common sense. I'm going to send my kids to church school. But what do the church members say? No, you don't know the story about the school. Let me tell you about the school. So these members inform these members what they should be thinking about this school. So they have a good relationship, and they're told you can't trust the school because of some administrators that used to be there a while ago. So this is a stable or unstable triangle. Stable, common enemy. So I guess this is a stable triangle. I guess I'm going to send my kids also to this other school because we can't trust this school. All of these are stable triangles right now, common enemy. But let's say these kids grow up to be adults, and they eventually have their own kids, right? And they're like, why weren't we able to go to this other school? Oh, yeah. And some of these other members are like, you know what? That was a while ago. Those were administrators from 20 years ago. But we've been holding on to an old narrative about the school. Maybe it's time we repair this relationship. So let's shake hands, let's work things out, and repair this relationship, which then makes this an unstable triangle. And when you make unstable triangles, the instability of that triangle or triangles will push for more change. Do we see that? I'm not saying you should do this to be a master manipulator, but when you do things in your relationship with other people, and if you repair that relationship, and that repairing of the relationship changes the leg of the triangle, which then changes the stability or instability of other triangles that are using that leg, you're putting pressure on the system to change. Because triangles that are unstable want to change. And you've just changed a stable triangle to an unstable triangle. So all of a sudden, because of repairing this one relationship, two other triangles become unstable. What this means is old anxiety and behavior patterns get caught in the family and get caught in the church. And we just say, this is the way that it is because something that happened in the past. And because we were not able to repair that relationship, that changes current triangles. But if we are able to repair those old wounds, that can change legs of the triangle, and suddenly there's opportunity for change elsewhere in the system. What does this mean? Maybe this new position in leadership, who came down here to the school on the previous slide, maybe there's some new administrator. When they come, they inherit the old anxiety. Now, when I talked with Pastor Chris, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, I asked him lots of questions about this church. And he talked about how healthy the church that it was, and he said he loves being here. I don't know if you all feel that way, but it seems like you do because he's been here for a while, right? So, but whenever Chris came into this role, he inherited the anxiety that was left over from the previous pastor. And some churches might experience more anxiety than this church does. And they have a rotating door of pastors every year or two. And the new pastor that comes in inherits the old anxiety along with the old narratives. Just because a pastor moves to a different church doesn't mean the anxiety that that pastor experienced or caused disappears and goes with them, right? So what does this mean? If we're going to repair relationships, we have to attend to the violated value that hurt those relationships in the first place. So, in the previous example, previously there were some hooligans over here, some administrators that were embezzling money. So they left. So maybe some new administrators moved here from Kentucky, and now they're new administrators, but there's already this negative narrative about this school. You can't trust the school. So to repair this relationship, these people in leadership might need to address the violated value of trust in order to change this relationship. So what does this look like? An honest apology. In fact, I like my apologies served two ways. With a healthy scooping of remorse, topped with the gravy of promised change in behavior. I want remorse, real remorse, and I want a promise of changed behavior or evidence of changed behavior. Those two things. If you don't show remorse and there's no promise of changed behavior or evidence of changed behavior, the apology is going to be really thin. If you continue to show remorse, continue to apologize, and say, oh, I'll change, I'll do better, I'll do different, that apology turns pretty sour because I keep hearing it, I see no changed behavior. If I just have changed behavior, but you show no remorse over what hurt me, I'm glad for the changed behavior, but I don't trust you because I don't feel like you really saw what hurt me. So the best apologies have a healthy dose of remorse and promise of changed behavior or evidence of changed behavior. So sometimes it's difficult for me in a position of leadership if I come in and inherit old anxiety and my position caused old wounds for people. What am I supposed to do? Because I wasn't even here, right? But I still have a responsibility in this role, and I can still potentially heal this relationship. So I can talk in terms of intent versus impact. What does this mean? I can talk about what I'm intending or what I intended to do compared to what the impact actually was, and I can differentiate those two, and I own both. So I could say something like, if I'm the new administrator of the school, I know in the past there's been some embezzlement of funds, and because of that, and this happened, and it was hidden and swept under the rug for several years, and because of that, it makes sense that you would not want to trust the school or the administrators. That makes sense, because you were hurt. Your trust was violated. You were sending money to the school, and people in the previous position were not responsible with that money, so it makes a lot of sense that you are now kind of pulling away, and you don't want to have as much to do with school because they violated that trust. That makes sense. That was the impact. So it makes sense you wouldn't want to have your kids come. So you're owning the impact, even though I didn't do that, right? I wasn't here. But I'm owning that, recognizing this position owned that impact, and then I'm going to talk about the intent. My intent is to make sure that the books are open, that we have oversight, that everyone can see what's happening so there's no funny business underneath the table. So I'm intending to do that. In fact, I've been doing that for the last 4 or 5 months. Our church, the school board has come, and we have a new accountant on board to make sure we're crossing our T's, dotting our I's. So everything is up to snuff, and you're welcome to come to our business meetings whenever you want to make sure we are doing things up to snuff so that we're not trying to hide anything from you. And I'm so sorry that for the past 15, 16 years, your kids have not gotten the Seventh-day Adventist education because you didn't trust the education system that was right next door. That's unfair to you, and I'm so sorry about that. I really hope you were able to find other places to learn some things for your kids. They got the best education possible, but I'm committed to infusing new life into this school. We want to be open for you, so for any new family that comes, we want your kids to come here because we want to provide top-notch education. So I'm owning the intent and the impact, even though I wasn't even here. Do you hear that? And I'm trying to be open to make sure I'm addressing that violated value that was hurt in the first place. If I don't do that and I come in and say, get over it, that was 15 years ago, I'm a new person, give me a chance. It doesn't land the same way, right? And then I want to start to challenge the perception of the dominant narrative. This means I want to start pointing out all the things that we are doing that don't fit that old narrative that you're holding about me. Because a lot of the narratives we hold are outdated, whether it's by a year or a decade or a month or a week or a day. Sometimes we have old narratives that don't fit the current situation. So one of the things I want to do is challenge the narrative, as in, We're inviting you to come and look and see. We're opening our books so you can see what's happening. We have a master plan, so we are budgeting everything accordingly. In fact, we have like a little cushion to make sure we are being responsible with our funds. And here's all the cool things we're doing at the school. We are inviting you to come. So we're behaving differently than the old narrative, and we're not letting you ignore the fact that we are different. Because I want you to see that we are different. Because if you are operating under your old narrative, you're missing out a lot on some of the things that are currently happening. Okay. So let's go back to the Bible. Let's go back to Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Joseph, and Leah's sons. Ooh, see what's going to happen here. Jacob and Rachel, his preferred wife, right? And what do you think is going to happen here? Oops, I was kind of hinting at it. He prefers one wife over the other, right? How do you think these two sisters growing up and now being married to the same person, do you think they're getting along? Yeah. So is this a stable or unstable triangle? Yeah, common enemy, stable. There we go. How about this? Favorite son, right? Favorite son and favorite wife. This is also a stable triangle. Good. And there's some conflict between here, right? Enough conflict to send Joseph down to Egypt, right? Probably prefer their biological mother over the other person's mother, right? And so we start to have these relational lines, and she might be upset that Jacob has a favorite son from her sister and not spending the same sort of attention, like, how come my sons didn't get coats of many colors, but only one son did, right? And then there might be some tension here. How come my biological father won't pay attention to me? I got no coats of many colors. In fact, I'm made to move around with the sheep and the goats, whereas Joseph gets a different set of labor responsibilities and doesn't need to go out with me. I'm upset with this. So these are all stable triangles. And I also, by the way, don't like this person, don't like my biological father, and therefore I don't like this preferred wife. Why can't my biological father pay attention to my biological mother? So all of these triangles are stable, which means all of these triangles resist change. This is a mess, an absolute mess. But they're stuck here because all of these triangles are stable. It's really hard to make changes in a family like this when these are all resisting change. It's really hard. If you're in a family like this and you want to make changes, just know you're going to be butting up against triangles that are resisting change. It may not even be the people, but the triangles that are resisting change. They're all stable. So Rachel dies, and Benjamin comes at the same time. She disappears. So even though she disappears, does the tension between her and her sister suddenly go away? The answer is no. Because now Leah is left with a husband who she knows preferred her sister, right? She knows that. And Leah's sons know that their biological father preferred the other mother, so this tension is still present, even though Rachel has passed away. Even though Rachel is no longer present physically in the family system, she is still present psychologically in the family system. But I removed her just so we can see this. So even though she passed away, everything is still stable, right? So what's a sweet solution this family came up with? Get rid of Joseph. Get rid of that other person, right? Now it's just Benjamin. Get rid of Joseph, right? Something has happened. If you were here with us last night, we talked about how Joseph put his brothers to the test, saying, you need to bring your youngest brother with you if you're going to come back down to Egypt next time I see you. So all the other brothers came to their father and said, if we go back down to Egypt to get food, that viceroy of Egypt, which is Joseph, they didn't know, says we have to bring Benjamin. So Joseph's in this difficult spot. Do I send my new favorite son down to Egypt and potentially lose him? But if I don't send him, my family won't have food. So what am I going to do? He decides to send Benjamin down. And if you remember the story, the sons go down with Benjamin, and they're taken to Joseph's house, and Joseph seats them in birth order, and Benjamin gets 5 times the amount of food of everyone else. Then he sends them home, puts money back in their sacks with the food, and he also hides this divination cup in Benjamin's sack. So all the brothers are going back home to Canaan, and then Joseph sends a messenger after them, and says, whoa, hold on a second. Someone stole, not Joseph, but the viceroy's divination cup. We need to look in your sacks. And all the brothers say, oh, no. Nobody here stole it. Look at all the sacks. And they finally come to Benjamin's sack. They open it up, and lo and behold, there's this divination cup, and all of the brothers tear their clothes. They tear their garments. And what I believe is happening, Joseph was testing the brothers to see how they treat the favored son in the family now. Because we know that Joseph was the favored son, and what did they do with him? Shipped him off. This would have been a really sweet story for the brothers to tell their father, we brought Benji down, but he has little fingers, thieving fingers, and he must have stolen the cup. And so the viceroy of Egypt said that he needs to go back in jail, and there's nothing we could do about this powerful man taking your son. I'm so sorry. But instead, they rent their clothes, and they mourned, even though they didn't mourn when they were sending Joseph down to Egypt. We're going down to Egypt with Benjamin to go present ourselves to Joseph. And so they have a very different response. So here's what I'm thinking is happening. Bryan doesn't know, so this is not gospel truth, but here's what I think is happening. Rachel passes away. And sometime during that time, I think something changed in this relationship. Why? Because Jacob, later on in the story, asked to be buried with Leah. Jacob asked to be buried with Leah, not with Rachel. So that tells me something must have changed here. So if something changed here, all of a sudden, some of these triangles that were stable become unstable. Do you see that? So if this is an unstable triangle, and this is an unstable triangle, now there's opportunity for change because some of these triangles are unstable. So I could see this potentially repairing because now there's not a son. Well, we don't know if Benjamin had a multicolored coat himself, but there's no mention of the narrative. So if Benjamin doesn't have this multicolored coat, well, maybe he's paying a little more attention to us because Benjamin's definitely the youngest. So he has to rely more on some of his other sons to get along. And if we repair this relationship, this becomes potentially all stable triangles in a new way, just because one relationship started to change. I don't know if this was happening, but something has definitely changed by the time the sons and Benjamin go down to Egypt. It's a different family. Do we see that? It's a different family when they come down to see Joseph the second time. If it was the same family, they would have taken advantage of the situation and gotten rid of Benjamin. Awesome. We get our food, we go back to dad, and we get rid of Benjamin. But that's not what they did. So it's a different family by the time they see Joseph again, because families can change. Triangles will resist change, but families can change. Okay, let's take a 2-minute, maybe a 3-minute mental break, and we're going to talk about practical applications. Let's take a moment just to walk around, get some water, go to the bathroom if you need to, because I don't want to overload you with too much. I know this is semi-fire hydrant approach, but I want to make sure we kind of go into practical application, kind of having a clear mindset. On now? There we go. Okay. Whew. All right. Let's get practical now. We've been talking about different parts of triangles, how they're formed, how they're important, the roles they play, our position in the triangle, if we're inside or outside, and then if it's stable or unstable, all right? Now, what does this mean for our lives? How can this help us untangle our relationships? The first thing is I want you to be thinking, how can I detriangulate myself? It doesn't mean you remove yourself from the triangles. We're always going to be in those triangles, but we do not have to be active participants in those triangles, right? So some people aren't going to appreciate your growth because they liked it when you were smaller, more broken, and therefore easier to control. God's plan for your life is overturning their agendas. So there's going to be, anytime you try and change, there's going to be pushback, right? Because the family, the system, the church expected you to behave a certain way. And now if you were changing that behavior, they're not going to like that. There's going to be pushback. We call that negative feedback loops. The system is giving you negative feedback saying, no. Go back to the way you were. We like that. We're familiar with that. So anytime you try and make changes, you're going to get pushback. The first thing you're going to do is change your mindset. Before you do anything, if you want to untangle yourself from tricky relationships, you need to change your mindset. Specifically, identifying whether it's your problem or their problem. That's one of the first things. Is this my problem or is this their problem? Is this their snow that they are pouring onto my driveway, or is it the snow that fell on my driveway without them putting it on there? Because we cannot completely avoid triangles, but we can avoid being active participants and brokers of anxiety and hot potatoes in these triangles. Let's start by reflecting upon some of the triangles that we're involved in. So before you say or do anything, remember that if you are experiencing distress, it could be because it's your own, or because someone has graciously given it to you and it's theirs, and they want you to experience some of that. So is it your anxiety or their anxiety? So when you suspect that what they're sharing is not your problem, start to realize this. And then when you know that the anxiety does not belong to you, you can start to realize, okay, this is not my anxiety. I'm experiencing anxiety, but it's not mine. This is my youngest daughter, Phoenix. And I took a picture of her. I thought it was really funny, and I thought I would include that because I'm in charge here, right? So these are some things that are not your responsibility. You are not in charge of other people's happiness, their choices, or their behavior, or their emotions. You are not in charge of that, right? You are in charge of your happiness, your choices, your behavior. That's what you're in charge of. As soon as we start to try and take care of other people's happiness or behavior choices, we're going to be sorely disappointed because we're not in charge. We're not that powerful. So 2 immediate questions. Is this my problem? Is this my anxiety? If you get nothing else from this whole weekend, if you're able to take these 2 questions with you, is this my problem? Is this my anxiety? This is going to help you untangle your relationships. Well, Bryan did a lot of talking to get here. Why didn't you start with this? Well, I want you to feel the weight of everything and see everything, to increase your insight into what's happening, and then see how these 2 simple questions can help you start to untangle what's happening. Because if it's not your problem, it may not be your responsibility to fix. If it's not your anxiety, you can say, I'm reacting to their anxiety, but it's theirs, so I can choose to have a different sort of response. 2 important tasks to do. Sketch out the triangle. Identify who's in the triangle, and then see if this triangle is stable or unstable. If it's stable, you'll know, the triangle is going to resist change. If it's unstable, you know that unstable triangles want to change. And I go, that's why I'm feeling pressure to do something different. And then make a lesson plan. Plan what you're going to do. Identify your role in the triangle. Identify what other people are doing. Simplify it, because relationships are messy. And if you can take some time, or if you were here at the sermon, I talked about how Solomon talked about how He who is able to manage himself is greater than he who conquers a city. It takes a lot of planning to conquer a city. And you're not going to walk out of here like, oh, I know exactly what I need to do with my relationships. I'm just going to, they're just going to untangle, be nice and pretty. No, it's going to take a lot of work because they are going to resist any change that you do. So you can make a big lesson plan. Okay, here's what's happening in the triangle. Here's my role. Am I an insider or an outsider? Is this my problem, their problem? And you come up with a plan ahead of time before you see these people again. Because maybe these other people are wanting you to behave in accordance with their values, which may not be in accordance with your values. Maybe in some of these relationships, you have been accommodating them. That's a fancy word for doing what they want you to do so that you don't experience tension in the relationship. But if you are accommodating what other people want, you end up swallowing that tension on the inside. So now there's a storm in your belly. And when there's a storm in your belly, but it seems smooth out here, you can grow resentful of that relationship. You have two choices. There's either going to be tension and a storm on the inside because you're accommodating them, or you're going to live in accordance with your values, which might cause tension between you and them, but at least the storm is on the outside now and not inside of your belly. There's going to be tension between you and other people. That's just how it works. So you can either swallow that tension, have a storm inside of you, which takes a big toll on your body over time, or you can stand up and live in accordance with your values, even though you know it might make other people upset. That's also hard. Both are hard, just in different ways. But the latter, when you live in accordance with values, doesn't take as much toll on your own body because you haven't swallowed that tension. Setting boundaries does not mean you are cold, unloving, or mean. By you saying, please don't put that snow on my driveway, doesn't mean you are a cold-hearted robot. There are some soft ways to do this and some mean ways to do this, right? So, mindset. Is it my problem? Is it their problem? Is it my anxiety? Is it their anxiety? What's happening in this triangle? Sketch it out, make a lesson plan. And then one of the first things I want to do is move to the outside position. This is not my problem. If it's not my problem, move to the outside position. Now, if it is your problem and you try and move to the outside position, that means you're running away from the problem. So if you can move to the outside position because it's not your problem, do so. And you can say things like, okay, I know what's really happening here. They're trying to rope me into this because this is an old pattern. They call me to come and fix their stuff. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to take sides, and I'm not going to make judgments. Another thing you can do is be an anxiety dampener. This is definitely the preferred role in triangles. Now, in full honesty, when Bryan is acting as a therapist, I will toggle between being an anxiety generator, an amplifier, or a dampener. Why? If I'm working with a couple and we never talk about, we met for maybe 4 or 5 weeks and we never talk about how one person has cancer, or we never talk about how their son ran away from home, I will introduce that anxiety. We've met several times, and how come we don't talk about Billy? How come we don't bring that up? Why are we avoiding that? And I'll introduce that into the therapy room so we can have a conversation about it. Because sometimes we avoid things we don't want to deal with. Other times, I will amplify it, right? So they're talking, and then one of them might say, like, oh yeah, and then she decided to take their credit card, and then she put $3,000 worth of clothing and purses on it, and then they move on to the next thing. Or it could be the other way, like he decided to go out and buy a new motorcycle, and I was upset, but we just made it work. And I'll say, well, hold on a second. Wait, they just spent $3,000, and you're just skipping over that? Are you okay with that? I mean, I can't give you financial advice, but are you okay with that financial decision? That seems like that's not just buying an extra box of Rice Krispies. That's $3,000. Are you okay with that? I'm like, okay, hold on. Do you like that they spent $3,000? No. Then why do you gloss over it? And I'm going to amplify it so they can focus on it. There are other times when they bring me problems, and I'm going to dampen it. Like, okay, good news and bad news. Good news, this is a pattern, so we know how this is going to end up, right? Bad news, we're still here. But good news, we're still here. So what can we do? And then we work on it. Instead of me reacting, it happened again? I'm so sick of this. Stop doing that. Then I'm not dampening. So as a clinician, I will use my clinical judgment to generate, amplify, or dampen. In my regular everyday life, I do my very best to just dampen. Do I always do it? No. But that's the best thing I can do for people around me. Why? Because I don't want to be a broker of anxiety in my family or with my friends. I don't want to take hot potatoes from work or school and then dump them on my family, because that's what happens. We just get so used to shoveling hot potatoes and snow around that if you're in a certain position, certain role or responsibility, you might get a lot of people's hot potatoes you're coming your direction. And if you can't protect your family from that boatload of hot potatoes, then your family's gonna be dealing with a lot of other people's stress. Why? Because you are dealing with a lot of other people's stress and a lot of people's problems. So you wanna be on the outside position and lean towards being the anxiety dampener. So you wanna remain neutral. Okay, this is not my problem, it's theirs. I don't need to catch their anxiety, it's their anxiety. And I need to recognize that this is a stable or unstable triangle and realize that some of the pressure for me to make a decision might be because of the triangle itself, separate from the other people that are in the triangle with me. So the triangle might want me to change even though I don't want to change. So from a neutral, encouraging stance, you can use many phrases, and all of them use the second person singular or second person plural, which means the word you, Y-O-U. So what are you going to do about it? What do you think needs to happen next? And I'm very intentional about this because I am not an expert on their life. And I want to make sure that I'm reflecting whatever they're giving me back to them. So what are you going to do about it? What do you think needs to happen? You know, you're resourceful. You're an adult. I bet you can find an interesting way to solve this problem. What have you come up with so far? Noticing it's not me, what can I do to help you? It's you. There are times that I talk about what can I do to help you, but most of the time when it's people who always bring me hot potatoes, I'm using the you language. I'm giving them an opportunity to learn how to handle their own hot potatoes. So far, do I sound mean doing this? Cold-hearted person, shutting them out in the cold? How about this? Well, I know you're capable of taking a course of action which will ultimately be in your best interest. What do you think the first step is going to be? You give them a chance to brainstorm. Sometimes people get so anxious, they can't think straight. And this is a biological phenomenon. When we perceive there's a threat, we flip our lid, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. There's a whole physiological response in our body, and we can't think straight, which is why we have phrases in the English language like, get a hold of yourself, you're acting crazy, calm down, because we know people can't think straight when they're upset. So by you being neutral, calm, and say, okay, what do you think is the first step? You're not catching their anxiety, and you're giving them a chance to think about what the first step is. And if they say, I don't know, I need some help, okay. Let's just take a deep breath, because we know we're not going to solve anything when we're all uppity-uppity. So let's just take a moment. Okay, so what have you tried? Again, giving it back to them. I'm sorry you're in this difficult position. That sounds really hard. I don't know what I would do if this sounds terrible. I'm so sorry. But I'm confident that you two can figure out a way to resolve this. What do you think you need to get there? Again, not trying to rescue them. Sometimes that amplifies the anxiety. Instead, keeping it in front of you. What are you going to do about it? And you're really giving them a safe place to start to think through this, and you will find that most people have some good intuition about what might need to happen next. So don't let other people use you to avoid being responsible for their own decisions. Instead, you're keeping them responsible for it. And eventually, you will train them, and I need the word train, because we train people around us all the time. What we're acceptable doing and not acceptable doing. We will train them, and they will learn, when I come to Bryan, he helps me think through this. And I walk away feeling better about it, because he's calm, and I come away with a course of action, or at least like an inkling of what I can do. And I teach them to do that, and soon they will start to believe that they can handle their problems, and they will stop bringing me hot potatoes. Because I'm learning that I can teach them, oh, this is my driveway. I don't need any snow here. But you have a lot of snow on your shovel. What do you think you're going to do with it? And I really let them figure out what they're going to do instead of dumping it on my driveway. So if you're able to do this and detriangulate yourself, you can be more aware of the push and the pull of the group, or the push and pull of your own emotional reactivity, and then intentionally act in accordance with your values instead of responding and reacting to other people's anxiety. Like we said before, a lot of times in relationships, we think we are reacting to the other person, but most often we are reacting to the anxiety we are experiencing in the relationship, not the other person. But if you're able to realize, this is their anxiety and I'm catching it, this is not my problem. Okay, I can be on the outside. Okay. What did Bryan say? Oh, yeah. This sounds hard for you. I'm so sorry in their position. What do you think you're going to do about it? Yes, okay, I didn't take any responsibility for it. It's put it back on their plate. So when you resist getting pulled into the triangle, you don't react to that anxiety, and you can respond in accordance with your values. That also means you have this outside perspective, and you can think about what might be the violated value, or you can help other people when they bring you their anxiety. So why do you think you were so hurt by this? What value is at stake here that made you want to respond this way? And you're able to help them do that. You could not do that if you jumped in to get in the muck, right? So you're creating something called systemic change or second order change. Instead of trying to help them just change the one behavior, you're helping them change their reaction to future anxiety. So they learned, I can't come to Bryan and bring my hot potatoes to him. And maybe I don't need to shovel hot potatoes to other people. And so I'm able to react, and I have more agency and belief that I have some mastery over my own life. Whereas before I didn't believe that. I thought I needed someone to come and rescue me. So you are not on call for other people. Unless it's an issue of safety, that's a little bit different. But you are not on call for other people, and your calm unwillingness to be roped into their triangle will model a new and better way of managing anxiety in relationships for the whole system. Because if they start doing it, then other people might start doing it, and all of a sudden you're creating systemic change where I'm no longer willing to juggle these hot potatoes, and this is my driveway. I'm going to protect my driveway, not because I don't like you, but I don't want to do this business anymore of just shoveling snow to whoever's driveway is available. So what can I do to detriangulate myself from a challenging triangle? How could the ability to detriangulate myself help my family or my church? We're going to get in small groups again. What can I do to detriangulate myself and challenge from a challenging triangle? And how could the ability to detriangulate myself help my family or my church? So get in small groups, and we're going to talk about this. What's the answer? What can we do? All right. Help me out. Someone give me one or two things. What can we do to detriangulate ourselves from challenging triangles?
Pray a lot.
Pray a lot. There we go. This is good. This is true. We can pray a lot. That is absolutely something we should and can do. Good. So after we prayed a lot, what else can we do?
So if somebody comes to you, two of your good friends come to you and they're having troubles between each other, you tell them, you know, I'd like to be able to help you, but it's not my place. You guys need to work this out together, and I'm your friend, I'll be your friend, but I can't get involved in that. You guys need to figure this out.
But we've tried this already. This is why we're coming to you. We need a mediator.
I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work. I've seen it before, and I'm not going to get involved, but I
We need a neutral
hope
party.
you
We
guys can
came
do
to you.
this.
We thought you were our friend.
Yeah, I am your friend, and because I'm your friend, I'm doing this for you.
But you're no help. We
I'm
came to you for help, and you're
sorry.
rejecting us.
When it gets better and you guys are feeling better, come on back.
Okay. Now, these friends might be upset, right? Because they were coming, they wanted a solution. They were trying to amplify the situation, right? They brought anxiety, then tried to amplify it. And she might have to become more and more firm with her boundary, and they may not like it. Ooh, they may walk away incensed. But she's also showing them, I'm not willing to take on your hot potatoes. This is your business. And they know it's their business, right? They know it, but they would rather not deal with it. They'd rather someone else tell them what to do, crossing their fingers that this person will tell the other person that they're in the wrong, right? That they're wanting a solution, not actually have to deal with it. Good, awesome, good. Give me another example. What can we do to detriangulate ourselves? What's one of the first steps we can do? Stay on the outside, yeah. Whoa, this is your business, not mine. Okay. So I'm going to just walk in this conversation knowing that you're going to probably bring it up, but I know it's not mine. So I'm going to stay on the outside. Good.
But if you're staying on the outside,
they're going to try and reel you in, right? Sure. Come and help me. So you might have to resist that. Like, okay, well, I know you want my help, but what do you think you're going to do about it, right? Putting it back on them instead of what can I do to help you? You're not letting them rope you in as if you were responsible for their problem. That's when you use the second person language, you. Yes?
Yeah, I got a question. King Solomon and the two women one lost a baby?
Yeah.
That's a triangulation.
Yeah, you're right. So I guess this applies to anyone who is not King Solomon. So if you're King Solomon and God has granted you that wisdom, then feel free to do whatever you want. But if you don't feel like you're Solomon, maybe don't act like Solomon. Good, okay. How could the ability to detriangulate myself help my family or help my church? If I'm able to do this, how could this help my family, help my church?
Maybe it would allow the Holy Spirit to step in.
Potentially.
If I get out of the way.
Potentially. Good. What else?
It would keep the number of people in the triangle down because I wouldn't be in it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be active. Like, y'all can figure it out, but it's not my problem. So I don't need to also get in the mess. I don't also need hot potatoes. This is yours. Good. And you start to train other people in a good way that you can handle some of your own stuff. You don't need someone to come in from the outside to rescue you. Yes?
It makes people more responsible to take care of their own problems.
Yes.
Or to find a solution to their problem instead of just coasting along and let somebody else tell them what to do.
Yes. And they will blame you for not helping, and then if they don't solve their problem, they'll continue to blame you. But if you're able to do this and people start to become more responsible, they're going to thank you for it later, right? Hopefully, right? But we are not in charge of their behavior. We're not in charge of their emotions. We can just live and act in accordance with our values. That's the best that we can do. We can't control other people. Good. Yeah. Oh, these microphones.
Is it possible to not be involved in the triangle, just if someone is wanting a listening ear?
Yeah. So here's what I like to do. If someone's coming to me and they're venting, sometimes it feels good to vent. Let's be honest. I sometimes like to vent, right? They're coming to vent. If I start to think about the problem too much, then I'm catching their anxiety. So what I like to do sometimes is imagine, I don't do this in therapy room, but I'll recommend this to you. Pretend there's a trash can right in front of you. And you're holding your hands up like this, and they're venting, and you're just deflecting all the stuff to the trash can. You're not going to hold on to it. It's not gimme, gimme, gimme. And in fact, you might not, I wouldn't even be too curious. If you start to get more and more curious, you might start to catch some of that anxiety. Tell me more. And then what happened? Just let them vent what they need to vent. And when it comes and it just bounces off you, and it's going to the trash can. And then we're done like, wow, that's a lot. Oh, it sounds hard. What are you going to do about it? Boom. And you haven't taken it on. It's not, oh, don't talk to me. It's not like that. You can listen, but if this is repeated, you can say, this is the 4th time in 2 months that you've come to talk to me about this. It seems to be a pattern. What are you going to do about it? Oh, and then start to identify that so that you start to train them. I'm not okay with this happening all the time because nothing's changing. I'm not willing to participate. If you coming to vent to me is robbing you of the opportunity to actually deal with it because you've let off a little steam, then I'm not allowing you to actually deal with the problem. Because you just come to me when you're starting to boil over, and then I listen, and then you think everything's okay, but then it happens again. So you can have that sort of approach. Okay, I want to be respectful of the time. So if you have a smartphone, if you're willing to, I would love to receive your feedback. If you can you can kind of bring your smartphone up. I would love to get some feedback, just a 5 to 7 minute survey about your experience here. You don't have to if you don't want to, because I do want to get some feedback about your experience in this summer. So I'll leave it up here for another minute or two. Then I'm going to go to the next slide. Another minute or two. I'll get out of the way. Because I will be looking at these. These are all anonymous. But I do want to get feedback because I do this every other month. I want to try and do little improvements whenever I can. And the final thing I want to leave you with, the phones are still up. I don't want to rob you of this opportunity. And I will go to the next slide, let everyone go, and then I'll put this slide back up if you want to come up here. I finally found it after 15 years, the scroll of truth. You're catching their anxiety if you're solving their problem. I don't like it. If you're solving their problem, you're catching their anxiety. So you need to decide, is this worth me touching or not? Because if you're going to protect your family from other people's hot potatoes, you have to stop it with you. Right? Otherwise, you're going to broker, take those hot potatoes, take that snow and dump them right into your family living room. And you can stop it in their tracks. You can let them know, I'm not willing to take that on because I don't want to carry it. I have my own stuff to deal with. And that's one of the best things you can do to untangle your relationships. All right, let's pray. Father God, we don't always know what to do. And relationships are tricky and messy and hard. But I pray that you give us insight and wisdom and direction as to what we can do. Help us live in accordance with the values that you have instilled in our heart. Help us come to you when we don't know what to do. Help us to pray to you and leave it all at your feet. But also sometimes take responsibility for our actions as well. You are so patient. You are so kind. You are so good. We want to be more like you. Amen. Thank you. So I'll leave this up here if you want to continue.
Have you enjoyed this? Have you learned anything this weekend? I know I have. This very principle could have applied to a situation this last week. And maybe you have related in the same way and said, man, had I known this last week, might have made my life a little easier. But I hope that through this weekend you have gained some things that will help to make your relationships more healthy. That's the whole reason for going through this weekend. So I hope that's been helpful to you. A huge thank you, Dr. Bryan Cafferky. Appreciate you coming and being here with us. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say he'll be here for a few minutes to visit with you if you have any questions. Otherwise, have a marvelous evening. Have a great week. And may your relationships become stronger. Thanks so much.